less questioning I did about myself as to who I was, the more comfortable I felt. So now I have absolutely no knowledge of who I am, but I'm extremely happy.
You have a very good heart.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Broward Exchange. I am your co-host Nick, and with me I am joined by Lewis.
What's up?
We're back again after the holidays. We had a happy new year, Merry Christmas, and any other holidays. We thought of them too.
Kwanzaa,
Yeah, Hanukkah, whatever.
Yule, like
Yeah. But we are back. We took a little longer because we did some traveling. Lewis went to his home country.
it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank God.
And I went to London and Paris, and I came back with a newfound anger and hatred. Actually, not newfound, a reinvigorated anger and hatred for movie biopics. See, today
Oh my God. Yes.
me and Lewis are going to be talking about music biopics because we've been wanting to do movies, but we don't know because we're mostly music. So we're like, well, let's meet in the middle. Biopics. So what inspired this episode? So I was laying in bed, my girl was on the TikToks, and she scrolls over this TikTok of the multiple picture reels, and it's like all the upcoming biopics of like musicians, and there's like 14 of them coming out. There's the new Bob Dylan one.
Mhm.
There's a Bruce Springsteen one with the guy from The Bear, Jeremy Allen White.
Wait, hold up. I didn't know that.
Yes,
Bro.
there is now going to be a Sid Barrett one from the guys who made the new Bob Dylan one. There is going to
Awful.
be a Michael Jackson one. And there's like another 10 fucking biopics. And I always remembered these biopics from the two that we're going to be talking about today suck. They always miss. There's very, very few that are good.
I
Anything to
was
say,
not
Lewis?
of that opinion before I went into this, by the way. I was like, there's a very evenly distributed good, bad, like every genre has its duds, every genre has its moments. But honestly, looking down the list and trying to come up with movies that weren't derivative as fuck, didn't hit the same exact plot points all the time, and didn't do the same exact mistakes was like actually hilariously hard.
Yes. And they're all so similar. It's like it really is like the same formula, and I'm pretty sure, well, we know. It's
And it's the
because
same problems. It's like the same problem. Besides like really obvious stuff that people patch up later on, it's like the same exact like, dude, what? Come on.
so Lewis, I actually
Like
made up
the missteps, bro.
a list
No.
of the sins of biopics. Are
Okay,
you
I'm
ready?
excited. I'm hyped.
All right. So first three, these are all historical failings, all right, in some way.
Okay.
One, this one's probably least egregious. They mix up dates to make things more dramatic. Like something that happened in 82, they make it look like it happened in 79 so they can have this scene.
This got to be like the least egregious one because like I
Least
can
egre-
totally get you're
I
making
get
a
it.
film
Yeah.
about a historical figure, and the way time happens in movies, it's linear. You can't do this like we circle back to stuff, or that becomes a TV show or 3-hour epic, and like you don't really need that for a biopic every time.
I get it, but this leads to the bigger issue,
No, this does lead
which
to
is
this is
to
just a
the
symptom.
second one, which
Yes.
is making drama, things that didn't happen or were way worse in the movie than in real life, to add more drama to the movie.
Okay.
Like fake shit, which we'll see in the movies. We're gonna be talking about Bohemian Rhapsody and Jimi Hendrix All by My Side.
Yeah.
Those are the two main ones we're going to be stinking on, and these movies commit many sins. And we also want to talk about some good movies, some good examples. So what we have brought up was Love and Mercy, which is the Beach Boys movie,
Hmm.
and Piece by Piece, which isn't a biopic. I think it's technically a
No,
documentary, but
it's a biopic. It's just postmodern as fuck, and I
yeah,
do want
it's
to get
like
into that once we do touch on that.
we'll get to it. But like I liked it. It did a lot of cool things, so that's why I brought it up. And then we also brought up a little wild card, mostly to meme. But last night, I did watch Walk Hard, and it's kind of funny that Walk Hard is parodying all these biopics. But before Walk Hard, I recently watched the Elvis movie. I'm just gonna bring it up, but the Elvis movie
Okay, no,
is
no, I didn't get to
literally
see it. That's
Walk
why he's saying
Hard.
that. Man, it's literally the same thing.
It's like, but it's unironic Walk Hard. If anyone doesn't know, Walk Hard is like a really funny parody movie of like a fake musician, and it's like made to be like a biopic, but it follows every trope ever. Like there's a tragic beginning. It invigorates him to pick up the instrument, and he's just a fucking god at the instrument.
Immediately.
And yeah, and then he's cheating and a bunch of drugs, and every biopic is that movie essentially.
No, there's like the scenes that like crack me up the most, or like when someone says something, he's like, "Oh yeah," like the title of my hit song.
A great song name.
I gotta, I gotta write it down.
No, my favorite meme of that movie is the
Yeah.
every time the guy's doing drugs, and he's like, "You
Bro,
don't
at
want
that
no part
part-
of this shit, Dewey. It's
Dude.
non-habit forming. We're smoking marijuana. Really? Am I gonna get addicted? It's not habit forming. Am I gonna overdose? You can't overdose. This must be really expensive. It's the cheapest drug known."
There it is. Yeah.
But anyways, so sin number 2, making up stuff. Sin
Right.
number 3, character assassination. Just full blown. This person was not like this in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not. You're not acting the character. You're cosplaying the character, and you're making them look like some tragic figure when they're actually a very good soul. Both of these movies that we're going to talk about do this in ways that are just so pathetic. I hate it. Anyways, you got anything to say?
No, on the third one. Well, I'm gonna touch upon this later because I feel like this is endemic of what separates for me the good and the bad biopic, which is the complete misunderstanding of why someone is a recorded artist in the first place. And there's something to be said about ambition, because like that's very common in pop music and classical music and whatnot. But like, with a lot of these guys who are like blues artists, country artists, some folk, some rock, the reason why those guys do it is mostly out of love of music, not so much ambition. I mean, it's great that they're recognized, and they hate it when they're not recognized, not because they lose on money or they lose on status, but they're like, oh, am I misunderstood?
Yeah.
And that's what separates, like, all the bad biopics are like, I need to be the best, right? All the good ones are like, I need to create the best work of art. Like, I want to really dedicate myself to this work of art. And and we'll touch upon that more, because I think it's really obvious when you watch something like Love and Mercy,
which is the Beach Boys movie.
Yes.
And that movie gets it right really well. I think a good way to describe it is that the bad biopics aren't movies about music. They feel like sports movies.
Yeah, they're like, I have to prove myself at this concert, or my career's over. Like, it's never really like that, And if these guys like truly love music, like they bounce back. It's mostly like if the music that they put work into, just the general public either rejects it or a middleman rejects it.
Yeah. And I guess, I don't know, I feel like these directors get lazy. It's hard maybe to describe the emotional process of making art and like recording it and like having capturing a character do it.
Mm-hmm.
So they make it like a sports movie because it's easier to film motivation and drive and determination and we're gonna get it, But in the end of the day, sports is something that, yeah, there's natural talent to, but you can just work really hard and get really good. But I think with music, you
and
can't just
and
like
also
brute
sports.
force music, you know?
Yeah, and also like music isn't a competition. You see, the Beach
Yeah.
Boys aren't that affected by the fact that the Beatles are outselling them. They're like the Beatles are fucking good, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, it
Like
motivated
and we're
them, but
both
like,
rock stars, so it doesn't matter in the first place.
yeah, they're both rich, like they got it, you
Both
know?
rich and critically acclaimed. They're like it doesn't matter what the other guy's doing.
Yeah, yeah, it's just a nice thing. But they want to frame it like it's like, you know, this Bohemian Rhapsody does this a lot. And I
A
think
lot.
wait, let me get a couple more cents.
Oh
Four,
yes, yes, yes. Of course.
failing to capture the epicness of real world events in just mediocre scenes like the Jimmy movie does this a lot. Both of them do this, but just like what was actually an incredibly epic and really good show, they're just like, I'm just watching four actors do this and lip sync.
Yeah, and it's either like you. First of all, there a lot of times like those scenes, particularly the actors are they don't know how to play their instruments, and the vast majority of people can't tell. But it's honestly there's a bunch of tricks, and it does it, and I think it's an effort that most actors should go, or else the energy of the song doesn't really work. You know, it's extreme. I was thinking about this when I was watching Dewey Cox.
Yeah,
It was crazy to me that I can like totally tell when actors are like lip singing to someone else's vocals.
yeah.
You know, but at least even in that regard, like they're like matching up well. But like most of the movies I see with that scene of like that show, nope. And it's like it tries to feel like a music video, but the editing isn't crazy enough. The visuals
It's
aren't
just
cool enough,
it's
or
flat.
yeah, like it doesn't know if it wants to be like the concert experience, how it would feel like first row, or a music video.
I'd rather just watch the live performance,
Ex-
right?
exactly, exactly.
Than watch you cosplay Freddie Mercury. I don't know. And this is all of these are epidemic to the last sin, which is you're making a movie about art and expression, but it's just a bunch of people talking. It's very boring, and you're not making me feel what the music makes me feel. There's no cool animation or like just really good cinematography or just like good acting to get me feeling some type of way like the music does. And I think there's two ways to do this well, which is the way Love and Mercy does it, where it's more subtle and it just has really good acting. And the music, they let the music guide you because it's the fucking movie about music. So just let the use the music. It's good. Or the way Piece by Piece does it, which is it's just a beautiful Lego movie. It's very vibrant and colorful and it's animated. So it gets to do
Hmm.
that. But you see what I mean? Just kind of like what I'm seeing on the screen is kind of boring. It's just people talking.
Yeah, it's because I think like a lot of the time they're trying to go for the sports or even more so, the like important political figure biopic, which is all about realism. It's
Yeah.
always and but usually those are win-lose situations. Like you gotta come out on top to win. It's not something that can be necessarily like up to interpretation, subjective, like the art world is. Um, and second of all, it's usually like much more like truly tragic characters. But there's a lot of uh, a lot of famous artists. We know about the like crazy shit they did, but like for the most part, their career A to B, very. They got recognized. They kept on putting out good work,
Yeah.
and they get lost in the sauce like anyone else. But it's like it's fine.
I know, and that's why a lot of these stories feel the same. I feel like when I was seeing the TikTok of all of the different biopics,
They're
I
the
was
same
like,
exact story. Like you can
it's the
visualize
same
it. It's just an
story.
aesthetic thing.
It's the
Like it
same
just
story. He
becomes
comes
an
from a small town, plays his guitar real well, and it gets big and famous. So it likes doing the cocaine, and then starts cheating on his wife, and then
Oh yeah.
goes sober.
Also, it
Like,
doesn't help that all of these guys are like, what, within like 10 years of each other?
yeah,
All in 60s,
yeah,
have
and
careers that revive in the 90s. Like, come on, bro.
yeah, and
Every
then they do
time.
the Avengers thing. They
Where's
do the
where's the
Avengers thing.
where's my 80s biopics? You know?
Where's the '90s Biles pick? Oh, I guess
There's
it's
like
too
there's
close.
they're taken over by Kurt Cobain.
No,
'Cause there's the Kurt Cobain. Well, okay. There's I haven't seen Last Days. I've heard it's decent. I've seen some documentaries that use a lot of found footage that I think works way better for the Kurt Cobain story. You know?
yeah,
Oh, that's something else. There's a lot of like you got to get someone who's like tragic enough that there's drama, but not tragic enough that like you can't end on like
that's
a
why you
downer
can't do
beat.
Kurt Cobain. It's too soon.
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
There's one for the dude from uh what's the first post punk band? Joy Division.
Joy Division. Yeah,
Um,
Ian Curtis.
Ian Curtis, like who killed himself at 23, and like there's a movie about that, and I legitimately haven't seen it because I'm like, that sounds depressing, bro. Like the dude didn't even have a career. Like I'm like, dude, I can't.
He didn't even make it to 27, man.
No, like it's like an album and an unfinished album, and I'm like, what am I gonna learn besides this dude was troubled and no one helped him?
Yeah, he had epilepsy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the seventh one? Restate it for me one more time.
It was fifth. There's five sins. This is the fifth one. It was just lack of any artistic visualizations in the movie, and the movie is basically just people talking to each other and
Right.
people playing instruments. No cool scenes of any good cinematography or just something to make you feel, like I don't know, just it feels like a Hallmark movie. People are just
Yeah,
talking
there's
to each
no
other.
story unfolding. It's just things happening.
And
You know?
yeah, and they're really fast. You notice that about these biopics?
Oh,
The
well, they
pace.
gotta be. They're like so much smushed in,
I
and they
know, but
really
like,
don't have material to work with because they're not thinking in, oh man, how these characters develop. They're like
yeah,
they just have a tragic backstory and they struggle with it, and there's no like the only thing they learn is that oh, being famous is not all that. Like, dude, honestly, the best
which
character arc of all these
really,
movies, at least the ones that are like the entire career spanning and have no good visuals, is the Dewey Cox. Like, yeah, at least is like, I got family. Shit, like that's it. But
Dewey
like,
Cox.
none of the other guys learned other than oh man, I'm old and tired. I
Yeah,
shouldn't be
well, which
doing that.
isn't true, which I think we could finally segue to Bohemian Rhapsody, because I feel like Freddie Mercury wanted to be famous and loved being famous and loved being a star, and
Yeah,
that was his vibe.
yeah.
So, okay, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Wait, did we
Every
finish
five,
the list? We
yeah,
finished
it
the
was five,
list.
five sins, and Bohemian Rhapsody does all five
Oh my gosh.
perfectly.
Okay, let's
100% speed run, all five.
all fine. Okay, so the first, so you're saying like, okay, go on.
So, I mean, let's talk about Bohemian Rhapsody. I think, all right, first off, quick,
Yeah.
how you feel about the casting?
Okay, the thing about these movies that I always notice is that the casting is actually excellent. Like
Yeah,
the guy looks like the dude, and then whoever they got for like the main dude of the story, whether it be Freddie Mercury or Elton John or Kurt Cobain or Jimi Hendrix, they got the mannerisms, the inflection, the dress, the look down to a T, and I can't really
yeah.
complain in that regard.
I feel bad for Rami Malek because you and I both know he's a really
No,
good actor
I
for
mean,
Mr. Robot.
he like, I know that he learned how to sing like that
Yeah, and
for that movie. Like
he looks like him enough,
the
and
dude
they
from,
gave him the underbite, and they do it, but he just did not have the script.
he didn't have the script. The same guy, the
Yeah,
same thing with the dude from Elvis. His Elvis, his use of language is exactly like the guy.
Yeah.
I can't really complain in that department ever.
Yeah, and whoever they got to get Brian May for Bohemian Rhapsody is like a clone.
No, there's no way. I thought that was
Like,
CGI.
I was
I
like,
was spent
how
the
is he?
entire movie being like, that's CGI.
This
There's
is
no
how did they get
way.
a man that looks exactly like Brian May? Like the guy who plays who's a drummer, Roger Taylor.
Yeah,
Like he looks like a actor version of Roger Taylor, a little prettier Roger Taylor, but the
yeah.
Brian May is a
Imposingly
clone.
like, like,
Yeah,
you're like, there's no way. So yeah,
yeah,
no, in that regard, that's not really the fault. There's actors that don't know what to do with the script, sure, but actors that fail to capture what the dude looks and acts like, that's not really the problem, and that seems to be like the number one thing that like studio executives are like, okay, if they can't pull this off, we can't get this off the ground.
yeah. I mean, typically you do casting pretty early,
Mhm.
and that's probably what studio directors will use to greenlight the film if you can find, your
And that's
main
what
group
usually
of members.
drives most people. It's like I kind of want to see Freddie Mercury jumping around and singing for an entire movie, you know?
I mean, yeah, this movie did make a lot of fucking money. You know that? It almost made $1 million.
Yeah, so like there's something there. It's just we're talking about execution.
Yeah. So where does this movie go wrong? Was let's start with one.
Well, the first okay, they got like a dude doing spot on, but then the script doesn't. But the script doesn't reflect the how do I put it? It doesn't really capture a person most of the time because a it's super unnatural to get what a person is like from interviews.
Yeah.
B they're trying to play into a persona that is portrayed in concert, which is usually not the person.
Of course.
If they're presenting something on top of stage day after day after day, what you see off is like what they don't necessarily have to like perform into. Um, and I think it's the way healthier, more successful artists that understand this, and there's like a distance between what they are on stage, what they are in the studio, and see. I think a lot of the motive, like they trying to look for a motivation for music beyond the music itself. And you ask the vast majority of musicians, there's no like sad, oh, my uncle taught me guitar and now he passed away, and now I think about him every time I play guitar. Vast majority of them are going to tell you the first time I played guitar, it was fucking epic, and I haven't stopped since.
Which honestly is perfectly fine.
Yeah,
It's
because
it's awesome.
the piece
It's
by piece did that
inspirational.
so well. It's like, oh, I just thought it was completely normal to just listen to music and be like, whoa, for
Yeah,
5 hours a day.
in Piece by Piece, it explains it with Pharrell Williams has synesthesia, which you don't need to have to like music, but that's why he felt like he wanted the movie to be a Lego movie because Legos are colorful, and when he sees music, literally sees music, it's colorful. So in
Yeah,
the movie, it explains this with a scene where it's like I love the way he describes it. It's like it's Stevie Wonder plays, and it's when the music plays, it just completely takes control. I'm completely enamored by the music.
yeah,
And it's so like I love it because all these other movies want to do some bullshit, whatever, the blues,
yeah.
Dewey Cox kind of stuff. But piece by piece, is just nah, dude. It was just took over me. It was amazing.
Hmm.
I just have a profound love for it, which I think is a better thing to say. It's one, more honest. Two, it's beautiful. And three, I mean, what else is there to say, you know?
Yeah. And it does capture like the entire point of watching these movies is to see how different these guys are than us, or else it's just a fantasy. I'm just watching
Yeah.
what it would be like if I, a normal person, became a rock star. You know,
Yeah.
and that's not really it. Is a lot of these guys are thinking of the world very, very differently, and not just like in a, oh, I just want to party and not play by the rules sort of way, but like I have to create something. I have to
Yeah, well,
put what I
I
hear
think
onto paper.
I think that shows us how more similar they are to us. I mean, they're
Yeah,
inspired in the same ways we are. And I think that putting that in a movie, it's more relatable to people than saying some tragic backstory because I can't relate to your tragic backstory, but I can relate to the fact that I love music and so do you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was like, oh, this guy is just a nerd like me. That's what I got from the Pharrell
Yeah.
movie the entire time. I'm like, huh. You know, I can't tell you how similar that is to at least when I read about Jimi Hendrix. We'll talk about the Jimmy movie, but when I read about Jimi
I'm gonna
Hendrix,
be honest.
he just
Most
strikes me as a
musicians,
nerd.
yeah, I feel like most big musicians will just come off as that, right?
Yeah, it's
They're just
like
nerds.
I just read is like I collect records and I watch like he collects records. He watches sci-fi movies. He sometimes will pick up a comic book here and there, and like that'll and he'll be like, I want to do something like that. I want to do something like that. You know, that looks cool. That looks cool. It's not like from the ether.
Yeah,
And
it's almost childlike in a way, which is
yeah,
what you got to do to tap into that creative level is kind of be childlike.
yeah, yeah. But Queen doesn't really have any of that. It's just like Freddie wants to be a diva, and he's always dreamed about being a diva, and this is his excuse. You know?
Yeah. And they dramatize so many little things, like the way he joins the band. Was it they lose their singer, and then Freddie's like just randomly comes up and he's like, I could sing. And then that's not what happened.
Yeah, and they're like literally outside of the gig, being like, "What are we gonna do with our singer?" And
Wow, conveniently, one of the greatest singers of all time just walks in.
magic of and no, dude, it's just like it could have totally been like, having him as like a side character, seeing the dude like piss off and be like, "Well, I heard your songs a bunch of times, and you know I'm here all the time." And they're like, "Yeah, sure, fine."
Well, I believe me, I think this is the real story, but the guy who left him as a singer actually recommended Freddie to join. Freddie was already singing in bands, like small local bands.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it wasn't like he was like all dramatic, like, "Oh, I quit," and then Freddie walks up. It was like I don't really. It was more like he just had wanted to make different music.
It's like, "Hey
So,
guys, this ain't me,
but you
but
can
I'm
try
not
this
gonna
guy. He's
leave you
pretty
guys
good.
hanging." Yeah,
You like, I know, but that's not dramatic
Matic.
and very diva of you, Lewis. No, it was more than that.
Yeah. It's like we're gonna have Freddie just come in, talk to the guys, audition, and practice a bit before they're like, damn, you're in the band? No.
No,
That'll take up the
that.
whole movie.
So, but I don't know. I feel like I get this feeling when I watch a movie and then I go and I watch YouTube videos about what really happened, and then I see how they're dramatizing it, and it it it's cringe to
It
me
is cringe.
because it's like, why are you doing this? It's like you don't have to do this. You can probably just kind of skip that part if it's not dramatic enough for you. Do you think these biopic movies need to tell every single part of the story?
I think that all of these problems, almost all of them, are because the biopics want to do this dude's entire career. And they want to do a story of 30, 40 plus years in which you see every single stage of the 30 to 40 years. Because they want to get the music in. They want to get music from
Oh
this era
yeah,
and this era and this era.
I get
And
it.
it's like,
I
dude,
get it.
that's hubris. Like, stuff that into 2 hours and then make a decent representation of this dude. Like, try to encapsulate a man's life in a cinematically accessible movie in two
In
hours.
yeah,
That's
two
folly.
hours.
Like, that's
It's
not gonna
ridiculous.
happen. And then to on top of that, add the story of the entire band, bro,
Yeah. And
bro.
well, don't even get me on the rest. I feel like this was not a Queen movie. This was a Freddie Mercury movie, and
First and foremost, yeah, actually,
yeah,
it would be
and
it'd
all
be
the other band
crazy.
members. Yeah, all the other band members just kind of got shafted, which is funny because that's what they talk about in the movie, which also didn't happen. remember the part of the movie where like Freddie does his own solo stuff, and the
Yeah.
rest of the band is like, man, fuck this, man. I'm out. That didn't happen. You
No,
know
it
about
didn't
this?
happen.
No, they already were doing their own solo stuff before. Freddie was the last one to do solo stuff.
Not to mention, these guys are like professionals. They're not gonna just like pull some high school shit like that. They're just gonna be like, "Hey, man, um, I'm doing like a record like with this other record label now," and most of the time, like they're helping each other out. They're appearing on each other's records for half of
Yes.
it, and that's like the same for most solo work. Like unless you really piss off your band, and there's been instances of that for sure. One really famous one actually is the Bowie with the Ziggy Stardust band,
Yeah.
and that's why that's why it didn't continue being like a glam thing. But it also has to do with Bowie's coke thing. But like
Yeah.
I, even that, like I feel like it would be really hard to dramatize because like it's not like they're like, oh, I quit. It's just like less and less making an effort to show up, less and less being like, hey, I can definitely do that song, and just telling their agent is like, hey, if he calls me, just tell him I'm busy,
They
you
were
know?
all very supportive of each other's endeavors. They
Exactly.
were perfectly fine.
They're
They liked each
fine.
other. This whole movie makes it out like there are these 30-year-old men that act like it's an 18-year-old high school band, and it's so dramatic,
And they
and
have to
it's ridiculous.
babysit like one dude. They always got to babysit the like one crazy dude. It's like that's no.
No,
Yeah.
in the 80s, these men were in their fucking 30s.
Yeah.
You know, right? I think I'm right, but they're grown men,
With
and they
houses
they
and
act.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, they have fucking kids and shit. They're not like these drama queens. Why is it? But problem with this though is that you can say, oh, but they want to dramatize it to make it fun. But this movie made $910 million. A lot of people saw it, and these are people's legacies and the way people will interpret their histories for however long people remember this movie. You can't just
Yeah.
fuck around with that. You're making these people look like drama queens. That's not what they were.
Yeah. Because like it's trying to blend in not just how these people present themselves like through the art with how they were as people, with what actually historically happened, but also with how rock stars are in general. And so and there's something about the mythology of the rock star that just got pushed out, especially way more during the punk age. Of like these
Yeah.
guys never practice, they just drink and smoke, and they play into it. Why? Because it looks way cooler when it's like just like completely like I don't practice. Like this shit is easy for me. You know, it's
I
like the
will.
exact opposite of an athlete.
Yeah, I have a lot more to say this with the Jimmy story, so we'll
Oh
put a pin
yeah,
on that. Yeah, but yes, but I feel like you're just making it look impossible to also, like, I do think there is kind of like a responsibility of these movies that they should be inspirational to an extent,
hmm. They should be
and
like
when you
you.
make it,
Most people like if someone really loves music, they can do this. Not oh,
yes,
it was luck. It was that era. It was like the last open-minded record executive ever gave them the smallest glimmer of chance.
and that didn't happen. That's another thing. This movie for like skips real drama that actually happened that could have been perfectly fine for them to talk about, then creates fake drama. So an example of this I can say is that Queen did get stuck with a really terrible record deal, I believe with Triton Records when they first got signed.
Okay.
And this is before they made Night at the Opera, but this is when they made Sheer Heart Attack. And they were getting completely like skimped and trashed on the royalties.
Right.
Then they move on with that other manager. That this is the part the movie shows. They move on with that other manager, and then they work with a new record label. But the new record label like fights to get them out of the old one. And you don't really see that in the movie at all. They don't even mention how they got like, screwed by that first record label at all.
Hmm.
That was the real drama. Instead, what this movie does is make fake drama, and then they talk about how the new record label like the producer doesn't want to like make an opera album, and Freddie's like, ooh, why didn't you want to make it? It's not even an opera
Yeah.
album. There's one operatic song on the album.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. And that never happened in real life. The second record label they moved to was extremely supportive
Right.
of anything they wanted to do.
It's like we fight you this hard. We're gonna let you do your thing.
Yeah, they fought for them to get out of the first one. Why are they? They're not going to shaft them then.
And record labels, especially at this time, right? Coming out of the '60s, they're very much like, uh, if they want you, they want you for real. And
Yeah.
they're gonna let you do your thing. I think this is like, because I think what changed that was the punks that come on like 1977, 1978, right? When
Yeah.
record labels are like, okay, some of the stuff we're putting out is hot garbage, and we actually have to like stay vigilant and start
Yeah.
looking. Because before, like, especially like coming out of like 1968, 1969, where people were really into experimental music, really into psychedelic music, record executives didn't put their 2 cents in. They're like, dude, it sells. Like who cares?
Drop that tab. Go crazy.
Go crazy, go stupid, and
Yeah.
um and yeah, no, but there's that, and I think a lot of I think a lot of movie creators are just they're scared of doing like real drama like that because it sounds too normal. It's like you get shafted by like your old company that you used to work hard for,
You
like
get a
that's like
bad contract.
yeah, like it doesn't sound exciting in rock star life, and most of the time the bands themselves are not dealing with it directly, right? They're not in the courtroom giving legal. So like so shooting that becomes a problem. Making drama out of that becomes a problem. But I still don't think it should be okay to just make shit up for someone that's real. I I don't know. Uh,
I know Bohemian Queen, they
yeah,
wrote one song about the old record label, which is just them fucking blasting them and making fun of the old manager.
right.
I can't remember the song, but I know Queen was affected by it, like them physically. But I don't know, with those old contracts, it is kind of out of their control. They signed the contract.
Sign their contract. I mean, they could. They Elvis seemed interesting to me until the reviews came out because it had the angle of the Colonel being like the dude behind the scenes and having him be the main character, rather than have the main character be Elvis. But you're giving me that look of like, dude, they fucked it up so bad.
They fucked it up so much. They made it like, you know what it feels like?
What?
It feels like they're copying what's the movie with Tom Hanks and DiCaprio where he's a con
Oh, Catch
artist?
Me If You Can.
Yes, it's like Catch Me If You Can, where the manager is like speaking about Elvis as if he was this mythical like thing that he tried to capture and like capture his essence and let him, you know, it was
Yeah.
really weird. And my also issue with that film is the editing is just uncanny. It has, as me and Lewis have talked about, TikTok editing, where it
Yeah.
is very fast. There's a lot of effects. It's very it's like trying to be really flashy, and it just kind of comes off as really corny.
Yeah,
And some
because
of these,
and most of the time it's like way flashier than the actual music. Like there is
yes,
the excuse of like you could edit it to the music, and I've seen that done before. I've seen that done in Amadeus for like opera from the 1700s, and
yeah,
it goes hard when you actually do it that way. But like there, Elvis is so not within like the mainstream like TikTok soundboard that doing that sort of editing to his music would they feel like would bore modern audiences.
yeah. Also, who's going to watch the Elvis movie nowadays? Boomers who aren't on
Boomers.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Don't
No,
care
but the
about
thing is
this.
like I need to capture the largest audience. No, make this movie for everyone. Like you're not making this movie for
Well, not for everyone, but like,
no, not for everyone.
you
Sorry.
know,
You got to most of the time you're making this movie for people who enjoy this type of music. Why
it's
would you
it's more
stray from that?
about, you know, be right with the tone that that the actual musician represents. I feel like the Love and Mercy, the Beach Boys movies, does this really well.
Right.
It's a bit more dramatic. Some people say it's a bit slow, but it's Brian Wilson was kind of a solemn, you know, quaint kind of guy. It was just he just really liked music. And it captures that. So it's not a movie that's trying to go like, whoa, crazy
No, it's like
orchestras and
it's pretty, it's melancholic, it's nostalgic,
yes,
and that is
yeah,
all the feelings captured by the Beach Boys, or at least the music that the movie's trying to capture, like that essence of the Beach Boys. I
yeah.
know the
Another
Beach
good
Boys
thing
got a
about the
bunch of
movie.
different flavors, but
Another good thing about the movie, it's not trying to capture the Beach Boys' entire fucking discography.
no, and it
It
shouldn't.
focuses
And
on two
that
parts. And
once
that's it.
again, we would run into the same problems. By definition, by the way it's structured, is like you can't do it. You can't pull it off. Like pulling it off, you either okay. The only way it works for me, from my perspective, is if you make it as semi-biographical musical,
So like piece by piece kind of.
like piece by piece, kind of, but like and really lean into because there's like I've seen movies that feature music from artists and eras from an artist. Like there was the Beatles one. There's like
Oh,
it's a
what?
musical. It
The
doesn't
new
actually
one?
feature. No, it was like it was a while back. I forgot what it was called. Um,
Oh, guess what?
what?
They're making another biopic on their producer. Forgot his name. The guy who does all the orchestras.
Well, he's the real beat. He's like actually the real mastermind. Martin.
Yeah, yeah.
Hold up. Hold on. I'm gonna look this guy.
But they're doing another one on him. So
George
everybody gets a
Martin.
biopic.
Yeah,
Yeah, George Martin. Everybody gets a biopic now.
George Martin did do all the arrangements, so that's kind of it'd be actually insane. If I feel like that might be a really interesting biopic though. You know why?
If
Because
they
George
do it
Martin isn't
right,
a rock star. And like,
it's
how
the
would they do
producer.
at the very? You know what? You just got me excited because I realized that there's no way they can do like the stereotypical rock star beats for George Martin.
Oh, they can't because he's not a rock
Because like he's
star.
like a professional dude that works in the studio late into his 60s, didn't really party, didn't go on tour,
Nope.
like doesn't
Just a
have this
composer.
this sad backstory of like, oh, I saw a blues man play. Like it blew my
He chopped his
mind.
brother in half, and
Yeah.
but I'm just saying it's another fucking biopic, another
Wait,
one.
it is another one, but at least I'm like, okay, it won't be that bad. That's why, okay, I have hope for the Beatles ones because maybe this might be naive of me. I don't think the same record executive will make the same four movies for all four Beatles.
They're not gonna make four. Do you think they're gonna make a Ringo Starr movie?
I thought that's what you were telling me. I thought
No,
that's
no,
what people have been going at. Is like a shared universe of the four Beatles movies. Well,
Avengers.
yeah,
If you
yeah.
collect, no, it's the gauntlet. You have George Martin, and then four Beatles, and then if you
Shut the fuck.
snap, you make Sergeant Pepper's.
No, you snap and George Harrison takes all the best songs and makes All Things Must Pass.
And then he bangs all their wives, and then
Yeah,
yeah,
actually.
and then John Lennon beats his wife, and
Oh man. Yeah, but
back to Rhapsody.
back to Rhapsody. Although you did touch on something, so many of these biopics want to like villainize and character assassinate. This is rule number 3.
Yes,
They want to character
sin number 3.
assassinate
Oh
these
my!
motherfuckers. But
And
like they
this
want to do
movie.
it and then stay family friendly, but also historically relevant, but
Oh
also still
yeah.
tied to the image of the music. Like, bro, pick.
Why is this movie rated PG-13? You know, Freddie Mercury was a freak. He was doing crazy shit.
That's
And that's what was
real.
fucking, that was what was awesome about him. You know about the whole rumor about his parties?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, he had there's a rumor, it's not confirmed. And when they asked Freddie Mercury about it, he was said he cannot confirm or deny this. But they have a little midget coming around with a tray of Coke in a suit.
Oh, I heard that's like on top of his head,
Oh, on top
like
of
a
his
hat.
head, and he just
Yeah,
bend over and do a line.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like
no, yeah, all these movies are like, oh yeah, the rock star life, and then PG-13 rating, so
yeah,
that you can
why
bring the
did
family.
I get it? Okay, I get it. There are people younger than 18 who like Queen, but my dog was a freak, and
You
there's
think
no
they're not gonna
shame.
look that shit up online? Just
Then
say
that's why they
like,
make it rated R. I don't know. So don't, like I get it. They wanted to make money.
this is the problem, Nick. The problem is they wanted to make money. There's no
and they
artistic integrity when motherfuckers want to make money.
and they did make almost $1 billion. So good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. But this movie, this is captures number four, which is things that should have been epic were not epic. And when they filmed the Freddie Mercury parties in Bohemian Rhapsodies, you walk in and it's like a tea party. It's like everyone's
It's
just
like a
kind of
tea
sitting.
party, but everyone's like dressed really weirdly.
It's just like, okay, it's a Halloween tea party, I guess. And like Brian Way, guess what they do in the scene? Guess what they do in the scene?
What?
They walk in and have a conversation. That was all the Freddie Mercury party gets. They walk in and it's two people talking.
Yeah,
And
where's the
it's like,
Wolf of Wall Street shit? Like,
that's what I'm talking about. It's
is
not fun. It's just this movie is two people, maybe four people talking for 2 hours.
it's like no, and almost all of these movies are like the bandmates are completely normal dudes, and then the songwriter is like, you guys don't understand, and they're like babysitting him the entire time,
Yes.
and it's like, and they're like, well, why can't we move our record studio to this much nicer place that they're building for us that the record label is sending us to? Well, it will mess up the music, the magic. You guys will lose it. You guys don't see it, but I'm a visionary, and
Oh,
and you guys.
I'm an artist. That was Freddie the whole movie. That was my impression. You don't know, baby. I'm an
An artist.
artist.
You just wait.
Yes, and I want there to be opera on this album.
Because I think it's the best.
Yes, and
Yes.
that was the entire movie.
That was the entire movie.
So yeah, let's go into the character assassination. Why did they make Freddie so sad? They made him so sad. He was not that sad. He was a very charismatic, charming. He was pretty happy-go-lucky. Yeah, his ending is tragic. Which, if you made him a happy-go-lucky character in the first part of the movie, and then made him how he was in the ending, it would have hit harder.
That would
But
have been interesting.
he's just sad.
He has this
He's just,
darkness in him. Like that's what like all of these movies are like. He has this darkness, this
yo,
dark
is this
tragic
Freddie
past.
Mercury or is this fucking
No,
Batman?
no,
Like, what are
exactly.
we making a
Like what
movie
are we doing
about?
here?
like, like why? This is so. It's just it hurts because I see him in interviews. I see how people talk about him. He was not that sad of a person. Yeah, I get it. He had some troubles with his family, and he was, he wasn't gay. He was bisexual also, and it makes him seem like he's just like this sad loaf of bread when he wasn't.
It was pretending to be jolly for all of the shows, you know,
He put
and
on a mask. Again, is this Batman? Or who is this?
sorry, bro.
Who are we making a movie of? It's just it's so fucked up, honestly, because it's
Dude,
like if
it's
I was
terrible.
Freddie Mercury's ghost, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, and uh, I don't know. I feel like so many of this like has to go back to like the fact that like his friends are involved and not him. His friends are like, well, I don't want to disrespect his memory, but like the way I remember, so like they like gloss over some pretty real problems that he might have had, and then like I remember him being kind of depressing towards the end, and that was and then they just leave it like at that, you know.
I mean, he had AIDS. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
but there was like 20 years of career before that where he was a pretty cool guy.
yeah. And they they I don't know. There's like the lack of subtlety when it comes to the real person comes off as lack of respect.
Yes, and I want to reiterate this also, by the way. This movie made almost $1 billion, so a lot of people fucking saw it, and therefore a lot of people will
Is this
remember.
the highest grossing musical biopic of all time? I think so.
I'll do a little. I think it is. What is?
Have you seen Rocket Man?
Uh, yes.
I
I
think
don't think that was
Rocket
her.
Man worked better and did a lot of less of these mistakes that we're talking about, the specific characters actually assassinations, the historical inaccuracy, because Elton John was involved.
Yeah, it is. It is the highest grossing music biopic of all time.
Yeah, but like the Elton John one at the very least was like, first of all, it's got to be rated R because you know it has like the life was rated R, bro. Like I don't know what to tell you.
You can make the George Martin movie PG-13, but the life was rated R for
Yeah,
these people.
yeah. They said fuck more than once.
Oh yeah, yeah. Freddie cursed a lot. He was a very vulgar person.
A lot of these musicians, especially that are coming out of the '70s, like you just look at their interviews, like especially the ones that don't do well on TV. Like, goddamn. But
Yeah,
why? Because they're never around suits, and the suits they are around do not care. These guys are drunk,
exactly.
high.
They don't care. They are themselves.
They only care about
That's
results. But guess what? They
yeah.
really care about those results. So
Yeah,
like
they are themselves and they're gonna do it unapologetically. That's part of being a rock star.
yeah, and so many of this is like this like came up over and over again. It's like uh Freddie wasn't thinking of logistics, or the band wasn't thinking. The band had to think about logistics for him the
Yeah.
entire time. I'm like, this dude was a professional. Like he stayed in a band for 20 years, and they stayed top of the charts for a reason. Like you can't just
You
think that
can't
like this guy was like
yeah.
clueless and given every second opportunity ever.
It's the wrong movie to make if you want to talk about a clueless rock star. Like that's the Doors, in my opinion. That's Jim Morrison. You know, that's there's other people to make the
You
movie,
can
but
do like
Queen was
some part.
professionals.
Yeah, like Queen were record label like their record label royalty 74 moving onward. And
Yeah.
yeah, and there's like this weird mixture. It's like it's trying to do his dance of like this guy's a retard that doesn't know what he's talking about, but also he's a visionary that's constantly inspired. It's like, dude, that's what who is this guy?
Your job as the movie is to answer the question for me.
Like,
Why do I still have the question after the movie?
yeah, like who was Freddie Mercury? Was he just a twat the entire time? Why do we celebrate this guy? Like,
Yeah, or was he just this depressed, like sad, zesty guy? Like I don't know. That's all I really got.
was he just like manipulated the entire time? He's just like pulled by the strings of fate the entire time. It's like
Yeah,
nothing
that's
but record executives and band leaders to tell him what to do. Like, I don't know.
so we
Why
have
is he the main character?
yeah, me and Lewis we have devised a test for these biopics. Maybe if we review more, where is this movie good if it wasn't insert band name, if it wasn't Queen?
If it wasn't Queen, this movie would be like, why is this guy the main character?
Yeah.
The entire time, I'd be like, who? Why do we have this dude?
Yeah, why is
And
he he's weird,
no, no,
like
not.
he's bad.
It's like, and if he's this annoying to his bandmates, why is he still around? Other than they want to use him for money, like that kind of seems fucked up.
Doesn't he? He's got a really good voice.
It's like we can't lose that magic. I'm like, do you care about this guy?
Are you guys being manipulative? Like, is this Stockholm Syndrome? What is going on?
Yeah. Oh man. I think this is a perfect way to segment into Jimmy. By the way,
Oh wait.
you got some
Final
things.
closing piece. Final closing piece on Bohemian
I know
Rhapsody.
you got things to say about this movie. I could go on forever about this movie.
Oh my God. The most important thing was before Freddie Mercury died, he left his estate to his manager. And because he didn't have kids or a wife at the end. And he said one thing. He said, I give you the responsibility of my estate. You can do whatever you want with my legacy, with my story, with my history.
Mm-hmm.
Just one thing. Don't make it boring. And then Freddie passed away.
They should have put that in the movie.
That would have been weird. Then everybody in the movie theater would have been like, well, they fucked up.
Don't know what to tell you, Freddie, but man, it's not looking good.
I would hope, let's just hope in 50 years when humanity finally understands the biopic, how to make one, we can just forget this movie was made because they're going to remake it again. You know,
Yeah.
they're going to make another bio. Do you think that too? Do you think they're going to keep making biopics again?
Yeah,
Once
because
enough time has elapsed?
it gets asses in seats, bro. Why wouldn't they?
They're going to make another Queen one.
They're
I mean,
gonna
it's about time for
get
another Doors
egregious.
one.
If people keep on supporting this shit, it will become more egregious. More like, let's stuff as much music as possible. Let's edit in as many historical events as possible. You know, because just to sell shit. And I'm like, it's gonna become worse. If anything, it won't become better. It will become
No,
worse unless people go, okay, enough. And that's why it took.
the government has to ban biopics for 20 years to just have everyone cool off.
Call your local representative and let them know you are tired of the biopic.
Just 20 years of no biopics. Let them cool off. It's like timeout.
No,
Okay,
like go into the corner, think about what you did.
come back with a good script. And we'll
Think about
let
what you did to that nice mustached young man. All right,
Yeah. The beautiful voice. Why'd you do that to him?
why? They do nothing to you.
There's child abuse. There's elder abuse. And then there's ghost abuse, which is what this movie did.
Ethereal abuse.
Yes, legacy abuse. This you can't do this to Mr. Freddie. So
If you made good music, you can't do it to him.
you can't do it to him. Hey everybody, we're back. We just finished fuming all the steam out of my ears from Bohemian Rhapsody and getting ready for more. Because now we're gonna talk about a little movie called Jimi All Is By My Side, which is a biopic on the late and great Jimi Hendrix. And Lewis, I just want to, just real quick, how much do you love Jimi Hendrix?
More than me. Like he's my idol. Like for real, for real.
For anyone who doesn't know, Lewis,
He's the number one dude I can do a drunk history of.
yeah, for anyone who knows, Lewis is a guitarist, and like many guitarists, they look up to Jimmy because he's kind of the GOAT. He's the greatest guitarist ever,
He is.
and he is a very inspirational person. So, Lewis, how do you feel as a Jimi Hendrix historian on how this movie captures Jimi Hendrix?
Well, first and foremost, I think that it once again doesn't get the character right. Andre does a good job with what he's given.
I mean, yeah, he looks like
But I'm gonna be so real. If he knows anything about Hendrix, which he does, he is a huge fan of Jimi Hendrix, like myself. I know he knows this. He should have gotten that script and been like, "Yo, this is not Jimmy."
Yep.
Like,
And how does he not know this? He's a fucking musician. How does he not know his Jimmy history?
no, it's not even like it is Jimmy history. It's like the feel of it, like because like you see a few of his interviews of Jimmy and you compare it to his movie, and the thing is, like Jimmy, even much more than Freddie Mercury, is a happy-go-lucky guy. Like he doesn't seem to be like full of like this dark past or depression or this confusion that this movie is trying to portray him in. And I think like it really messes up. And I can see that like it's trying to avoid some of the pitfalls that you see in the traditional biopic movies. Number one being that instead of doing the entire career, it's just one segment in time.
Okay.
That to me is the right direction, right?
Yeah.
One step
And for
forward,
anyone,
but then there's 10 steps back of, okay, now we have to make a complex character because we can't show his experiences in his childhood and the Vietnam War and his time as a road as a like blues sidesman, no, like a blues, like kind of rhythm and blues sideman. We can't show any of his time in New York. And I think that like they're trying
it
to
wasn't
show
the right
that through
move.
his trauma, and it's like that doesn't work because those weren't, first of all, those weren't traumatic experiences, and second of all, it's stuff that you only pick up like if you spend like hours with the dude. You can't really capture that in a movie.
You think they were trying to do that? For anyone who doesn't know the movie, it takes place specifically from the beginning of his like major career in London, and a lot of the movie is not really through him; it's through his girlfriends, which is a weird choice. Do you think maybe that's why it's that? Because they can't show him as a kid, which I mean they could have shown him as a kid,
Like
but they
they're trying
didn't
to
want
avoid that
to.
problem. They're like, okay, we don't want to be traditional like biopic
So
movie, so we're gonna avoid that. Like there's actually one biopic movie of John Lennon that's like just shows his time as a kid and stops as soon as as soon as he gets to Germany.
yeah,
And that seems, at least to me, more interesting. From a okay, you get the whole wider story aspect, but here it's just like it's the time where everything went well for him. It's such a weird part to like do the movie based on because this is like the time he had the least like besides the fact that like oh he has to get his music into the right ears. I can't really think of any drama in this era.
exactly. And so what ends up happening is instead of getting the kind of who's Jimmy's character? He's a little kooky. He's a little far out. Low key, socially awkward, but it's like charming.
Yeah, he's just
And he was known
just
for
a
being he
dude.
was cracking jokes. He was a funny guy.
Yeah,
And this movie just makes him look like a fucking depressed loser. This whole beginning of the movie, there's this girl who Linda Keefe, I believe, who is like being a mom to Jimmy, and she even says it in the movie herself.
yeah.
And she's like trying to get the right ears to listen to Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, she's like, "What kind of music do you want to make, Jimmy?" And Jimmy's like, "Well, no, well, I'm just playing my guitar." Well, he looks like this super unmotivated, like doesn't know what he wants to do in his life, like a diamond in the rough.
Mhm.
He just needs a little guidance so people can really see him shine. And that was not Jimmy
No, no, it
at
wasn't.
all.
Yeah,
He was a super hard worker. He was almost goofy how much of a hard worker he was.
he's
Let's tell the story about
obsessive.
the guitars.
There's from what I understand, like he would bring his guitar everywhere to the point where people are like, "Hey, we're going out to a party, we're going out to a club. Don't bring your guitar," and you just ignore that half the time. Like, and it's like this type of work that like it's hard to shoot or make epic in a movie because it's not like, "Oh, I got to grind to become the best," but more in a sense of like, "Oh, this is fun. I'm gonna do this for 12 hours a day. Like this is super fun. Like
He
why
was
would I
kind of
bother doing
autistic.
anything else?"
He was kind of autistic with the guitar,
Yeah.
and you don't need to make it like dramatic and epic. Just show him fucking bring his guitar to parties. And just
Yeah,
it's
and
funny.
and even before that, from what I understand biographically about Hendrix, he would do this as a kid before he owned a guitar. He would bring a like make believe guitar
Yeah,
around with him and pretend to play guitar all day.
yeah.
So so it's not even like a thing of like, oh, now that I'm big, I gotta always be practicing. I always gotta prove myself. No, like he's just it's literally his mode of being.
Yeah, this movie could have done a lot,
Yeah.
not just being on
This is the
one
Kurt
point of the
Cobain
career.
Hendrix battle. Like, this is what I think. I'm like, this is like
Yes.
someone who really likes Nirvana's uh, version of what Hendrix is. Like, this is
Yes,
not
this is not,
Hendrix.
but it's not actually Hendrix. He's not Kurt Cobain. He was a very, he was a savant. And I think that what I was saying earlier, this movie could have done well if it wasn't just one point in history. I think it should have told the story of his mother and like, the whole thing. Can you explain with his guitar and his mom?
Well, his mom died when he was like 14, and his dad, in order to cheer him up, because he notices like, well, Hendrix really likes this guy Chuck Berry on TV, and like it always cheers him up to like pretend to be like Chuck Berry, do his dances and stuff. So like, so he scrounged up money, got him like a used ukulele, and
Yeah.
and that was the first instrument that Hendrix had. And because of that, at least in some biographical sources I've seen, like there's like a direct relationship of like through his mom he found his love of music, and we it could technically be like going in the direction of like tragic backstory sort of thing, but like uh, I think there's something that could be used because it is biographically accurate. It's just like it can't be used in an edgy way. It can't be used in a way that like
Because it
he
wasn't
he
like,
like lost all hope in the world when he was 15, and like he's been that depressed kid ever since. Because
yeah,
that's not it.
it sounds tragic. Like, yeah, he lost his mom, and the guitar kind of becomes the conduit
Yeah, right.
of his mom. But when the way you watch Jimmy in real life, it's not like that. It's another way he loved music.
Yeah, it's another way that he felt is like, well, I get to do this thing I love and communicate energies, and this is what people do in the next room, so I might as well do it here,
Yeah, it could have been kind of spiritual.
right?
Um, but this is, the job of the guy who made the movie to do this. Why
Why are we doing it? But we didn't get any of that. It's just, oh, I
No.
don't know. I don't
No,
want to
there's
talk
one
about
line.
it. You know?
There's one line, and it was that. It was she asked him something about his mom, and he basically was like, I don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, that's like the most tragic, dramatic part of Jimmy's story from what I know.
Yeah. There's that. They could have like I feel like it could have also been intention of like Jimmy. While he did grow up really poor, he also moved around a lot, and he saw a lot of different music cultures that both sides of the camp didn't see. So like the surf rock of like the white kids, the garage rock of that, and like the
Yeah.
soul and the Motown of black kids,
Yeah.
and that definitely gave him an edge, especially when it came to the UK, and he was able to blend that. And on top of that, like British music, that you just find missing in other bluesmen. Like you could have used that because there's also the drama of, man, I don't have like a musical bubble that I fit in. But we
Which
don't
is
have
kind of
that.
what this movie does talk about that.
It does, but like it doesn't make sense because like by the time he gets there, like it's like at least for most like blues, the blues rock community at that time like embraced them like wholeheartedly. Like it just took it just took what a couple of club shows before Paul McCartney shows up to his show, being like, I gotta see this dude before he puts out an album.
Yeah.
You know, that's uh, so it's also hard. It would be hard to do that, but like you would have to do it earlier. But that once again, the movie it plays upon that, like it almost touches upon that, and then it's all right because he plays Sergeant Pepper's. Like it's fine.
Oh, and by the way, this is sin number 4. When he plays Sergeant Pepper's, it's so boring.
It's so bad. I'm
And it's
actually
like
looking at my clock.
this is supposed to be a legendary I know there's no film of this, right?
No, but it's so widely like. Well, actually, there is some film. There's some film
Okay.
existing, but like, it doesn't have the audio synced in. It's like kind of grainy
Okay.
and bad.
Yeah.
It's not something you would put in a movie, of course, but yeah, no, like it's hard to and like you wouldn't want to like do the entire song. At least I feel. Especially, oh, that's something else. Did you notice the entire movie? No Jimi Hendrix music.
Holy shit.
There's not because they couldn't secure the music because they sent the script to the Hendrix Foundation. The Hendrix Foundation was like, we don't want any part of this. Get this shit away from
Okay,
us. And
let's talk about why.
instead of taking it as a hey, maybe that's a red flag.
They
Like,
they just
let's
make
make this movie anyway. Because
I just
remember, like they even had one time they were setting up for jam, and then his girlfriend interrupts it. So we never
Yes.
see Hendrix play Hendrix the entire movie. Not even a music video for him, nothing.
Oh my god, you're so right because they do.
And
There's
that's
two
why it feels so
performances.
boring. It's a bunch of people talking.
It's a bunch of people fucking talking, and it's not even right. It's not even historically accurate. And I don't even know how you fuck up Jimmy because Jimmy honestly is pretty funny and like an interesting person to just
Yeah.
look at. And the movie just made him so boring and it also is focusing on the girlfriends a lot, which is a weird dynamic to go through.
S- Yeah, I mean, you could see is like one thing that Jimmy's known for is like being a womanizer, but like not even like that. Like during his time as a rock star, he had 3, 4 main girlfriends over a span of like 4 or 5 years. I mean,
Yeah, that's not Rolling
it seems
Stones
completely
or Led Zeppelin type shit.
yeah. And
Yeah.
what else? They kind of jammed in the what you call it the race thing last minute. I feel and it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like he even made a statement. It's just like, wow, you just told me about this racism thing. That's crazy. It just moves on.
This movie acts like racism is like an unknown thing,
No,
and it just
it's
told
like
you about it.
it's like, don't you know? It's like there's like black people suffering in the U.S. and Jimmy's like, really? That's crazy. Like,
This guy grew up in the South during segregation.
like he was a touring musician for 5 years in the
Yes,
South with black
yes.
artists. Like, my guy, he knows what's up.
But the whole movie. I get that he is kind of like an aloof person in real life, but he's
But he's
like
intelligent. He's
he's so
intelligent.
smart.
He's got his own opinions. He's just eclectic. Uh,
Yeah,
Um, and it doesn't get any of the eclecticism. He's also okay. I know I said that like the actors they put on like really good performances of these guys, but usually the dialogue doesn't match up because the dialogue wants to sound like their songwriting, not their interviews.
yeah,
Like we saw that in the Freddie Mercury one where the diva is played up way more. Why? Because in the lyrics of Freddie Mercury, he's a fucking diva.
yeah.
He wants to break free. Like
That's
like he's gonna speak like that, and that's like not how he speaks. And Jimmy is the same way. Like he doesn't speak like just some other some other like stoner or some other like hippie. If you actually watch his interviews, what I think is really interesting, he uses a lot of sound effects while talking.
yeah. Which
Like
is it's
it's right
kooky.
on brand. Like what do I mean by that? Like he mimics sounds way more than explaining stuff. And way
I
more
want to
than
go like zhoo, 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 like yeah, like
we were
that.
flying zoo around here. Like he'll like try to mimic uh television commercials. And you can see this on some of the writing on the on the liner notes for Electric Ladyland. Have you read those?
No, no.
Hold up. Let me liner notes. Correctly.
Yeah, but he was a kooky guy. He loves sound.
He loves sound. He loved like the sci-fi-ness of it. Like he just loved the idea of like, oh, let me just try to be futuristic for fun.
And his fucking guitar sounded like that.
Yeah. And they don't have that. They don't have almost anything about his relationship with his bandmates, by the way, in this movie.
Oh no, this movie loves to do like the video game thing where like a guy's face will pop up and it goes, Psh, Paul McCartney,
Yeah,
or
what
like
was that, by the way?
Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Why? Okay, thank you for just fucking whipping it out and telling me this movie does never. It always tells and never shows, which is boring, and makes me like I don't know. It makes me feel stupid or something. It makes you think I'm stupid or something.
No, dude, it's man, that and also like it's just lazy. It's just lazy. You could if they had like a few scenes where like he's talking, he's having a conversation, he's actually like showcasing his relationship to some of these guitarists because to a lot of these guitarists, Jimmy was life changing, not just in like oh man, like this guy plays really good, but the British rock scene at the time felt kind of vindicated. The fact that this dude is like, no, I came to London for the best guitarist in the world. You know,
Yeah,
I left the blues scene because here's where it's really at. To all these guys
yeah,
that grew up listening to blues rock, that's like that was incredible, and they had strong reactions to it. You know, there's guys that may have initially like been hesitant to accept him, like Eric Clapton. There's
yeah,
guys that were like completely on board with his new sound, like Pete Townshend of the Who. Um, there's guys that like legitimately thought that he didn't that tried really hard to now separate their music from what's going on psychedelically, what's going on and what's going on in British blues rock with like bands like Zeppelin. They're like, okay, let's do our own thing where we
yeah.
incorporate elements of folk, elements of prog rock, but like you get none of that. You get cameos, you
You
know?
get just straight up misinformation, Lewis. Let's talk about why the Jimi
Oh
Hendrix
my
estate
God. Yes.
didn't okay this movie. So, like I said, this movie is based around like his girlfriends at the time, which is
Yeah.
Kathy Etchingham. And so there is a scene, there's actually two scenes where I think Kathy he's going into the studio and they really hype it up like he's trying to get the right ears to listen to him and he's finally got a record contract and he's working with Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding and they're gonna finally perform and make some music and make some money so he can get out of this rut. And here's Kathy and she's trying to talk to him and like I guess distract them while they're in the studio.
Mm.
And so she goes and she's the producer like screams at her and says, get the F out the studio, blah, blah, blah. You're wasting everybody's time. Get out of here. So she angrily gets out. Jimmy doesn't defend her. So she angrily gets out. She waits for Jimmy outside of the studio. And then when he gets out of the studio, they get into a straight up fight. Like she slaps him. He fucking tackles her and like
Yeah.
just puts her in like like a headlock like this and is actually like fighting her
Like
essentially.
actually like physically violent.
Like domestic violence essentially.
Yeah.
And that never happened.
That never happened.
That never happened.
Do you want to read the review or do you
Well,
think I should?
there's one more scene. There's another scene where another woman gets involved because this movie is all about the girlfriends for some reason.
Yeah.
And she goes into Jimmy's ear and she's like, she's sleeping around and she's playing, she's disrespecting you, she's talking to other men. She's she's going around town, and you can't let that woman disrespect you. So then what happens is Jimmy's at a club and Kathy Etchingham, the girlfriend is on the phone with like something innocent like her mom or I don't know, just a friend or something. And Jimmy, after getting this girl in his ear saying that she's sleeping around, grabs the phone and beats her with the phone
Yeah.
in like a drunken rage. And that never fucking happened.
No.
That is straight up disinformation. Jimmy has never beat a woman. Ever.
As far as we can tell, but
As
out of
far as
all
we
of
can
his
tell.
girlfriends, like not one of them ever went. He was a violent dude. He was an angry dude. And yeah, no, you don't really get that. Like the only thing he would seem to take emotionally personally was the music, and of course whatever the fuck record labels do. But that's because record labels on some fuck shit most of the
He
time.
was a he was an innocent. He was just like he just wanted to play the guitar.
Yeah,
Like that's really it. He never beat a woman. And
and
the fact that this movie,
you're gonna
yes,
make
you're gonna lie.
the hippie guitarist be the one that's jealous, bro. Bro, you think
He could get
he wasn't onto it? Come on, it's like
he's a rock star. If she's cheating on him, or just get another girlfriend. He's not gonna fucking beat her.
yeah, the fuck.
And the problem with this is that it's misinformation. So you know what happened, Lewis? When I watched this movie and I was outraged by the scene because I know it's not true. I just Googled, like, let me just make sure. Has Jimi Hendrix ever beaten a girl, beaten a
Yeah.
woman? Right? Guess what pops up? A Reddit thread saying, "Today I learned Jimi Hendrix drunkenly beat a woman with a telephone at a club after finding out that she was cheating on him."
Yeah.
And I see a bunch of people commenting like, "Oh, that's how rock stars are." And all the way in the bottom, I finally see this isn't real. This is just from a terrible biopic. This never happened. But it's all the way in the bottom. And guess what? People who watch this movie and people who spread the information about that this movie tells are now going to think Jimi is a woman abuser.
Yeah, I don't know what this movie was thinking because, like, okay, say this was real. Say Jimi Hendrix actually did that. So you're telling me that this dude beat a woman in public with a object, and I should root for him at the end? Like, what are you trying to tell me? Like, like, it's either your character assassinating, or you're downplaying like something as heinous as that.
Exactly.
You can't have it any other way. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what they were thinking.
Why? But just why are you lying? Why are you fucking lying?
Yeah.
What is this? This is and this is why I get mad at Andre 3000. You know why? Because I know he's got to
should
know at
better.
least somewhat.
That's why
He should know better
100%.
before saying okaying this movie. Okaying this movie. He should not have taken that movie either. Just I would have read the script, saw that part, been like, take it out, or I'm not doing the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Like,
And
acting career or not, is like you can't do that to someone you consider a musical hero.
exactly, especially Andre 3000. I know he looks up to Jimi. You heard we just did the Equipment Eye episode.
It's like there's
You
no
heard
way
that
that man went through that, created that album, and didn't go at least once in his life. Oh my fucking god! Thank the Lord's Electric Ladyland is real, and I have it in my hands.
Yeah, and it would hold Jimi to high regard. And remember, this movie came out 2013. So sometime during the making of this movie, didn't Google it or talk to anybody, didn't figure it out. How could you make this? This is defamation. This is suable.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that, but let's get into it, Lewis.
I knew about that specific event because, you know, I watched the movie, and as a Jimi Hendrix nerd, I was like, damn, really? I gotta see what people on IMDb are saying.
It's a pretty brutal scene.
Right? I'm telling you, it's completely out of character, and they just move on. Like nothing happened.
Like it's kind of like a scene from The Sopranos. It's like he beats her. Yeah.
Yeah, like this isn't like a quick like, oh, I don't know what got into me. Like,
no,
like
the crazier part.
Yeah.
Is afterwards, after that scene, she's like, you know, black-eyed, all messed up, bruised up, and he goes to her apartment to apologize. He doesn't apologize. He just walks up to her, and he's got like these pieces of paper, and he's like, "I wrote some songs about you," and she's like, "That's not gonna make it any better." And then he's like,
he just sits there. I thought all people wanted was my music.
Because for anyone who doesn't know, she is who the Foxy Lady is in the song Foxy Lady, which they can never play in the movie because they didn't have the rights. But
yeah,
Yeah.
And keep in mind, like, this is a woman that's been on good terms with him like his entire life, even after. I'm not sure if they were still dating, but you can hear on live albums, which, by the way, I went through the entire catalog of Jimi Hendrix recordings. I actually did it. That's how obsessed I am with this dude. But on live albums, you can hear him. He's like, "Hey, this is dedicated to that girl over there that I brought out." You
Yeah.
know, like
That's another thing. The first scene where the producer yells at her and he doesn't defend her, I don't think that he would have done that in real life. He would have said something.
yeah. And Chaz is not the type of. Uh, I do know who the producer is just because he is seminal to the Jimi Hendrix story. You can see that a little bit in the movie. At least they get that part right, because anything else would be like people would like the Hendrix fans would riot. But Chaz got convinced by who was this woman that found him, the first one.
Linda Keith.
Linda Keith was like, Chaz, you got to check out this dude. Chaz been looking for an artist, and Chaz sees Jimi Hendrix. He's like, wow, you are incredible. What will it take you to come record in London? No, what would it take you to come record in London? And he's like, oh, in London, then I want to meet Clapton. Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Chaz is like, oh, perfect. I know that dude, and he can make it happen.
Yeah.
And but like the first few months that Jimmy is there, he's living in Chaz's apartment. Their daily schedule is go to the studio, come back, write new song, work on that song they wrote last night the next day. And that was
Yeah.
their schedule for the entirety of creating RU Experience.
Yeah, and that was actually the Jimmy work ethic, not moping around London like, yeah, I don't know what to do.
I gotta pick up a record. Like, no, Chaz, like,
He was
between
already
him
on it
and
when he got to London.
Chaz, between him and Chaz, first of all, before he got to London, he didn't write any of the songs before that. We got like some blues standards. Chaz really wanted him to cover Hey Joe. That was not even Jimmy's idea. And that's fine. That was like kind of their deal too. It's like, I want a single. I want it to be Hey Joe. I want you to play a cracked guitar solo on it.
Yeah.
And they're doing that. They put the band together, but like they're best friends. And even after Chaz quits in the middle of recording Electric Ladyland, but even then, he's like, oh, it's just not the way I want to make music. But like, that dude has never done anything bad by him. You know,
It wasn't like so dramatic. I mean, I don't think this movie gets into Electric Ladyland, but
yeah,
like,
it doesn't. It doesn't, because then it would showcase that drama, I feel. But it didn't. Chaz and him were best friends, and I don't imagine Chaz is a yelling type. You see him in the interviews, he's like classic British bloke, very
I
hard
don't
to
really
understand.
think Jimmy would mess with anybody who was like the yelling type like that. He's way
Yeah,
too mellow. Way too mellow.
yeah, exactly. And also all the like stuff of like it being his band, he's the only one writing the songs. It's at Chaz's um insistence more than anything else.
It's the Jimi Hendrix experience.
Like, he's like, I want this guy to be a star. The band formed around him. Jimmy wanted to construct like a normal organic band.
Oh,
So
okay.
like you can't even
Yeah.
be like, you can't even do the ego thing of like, I want to be the best bullshit here, because that's not Jimmy.
No, Jimmy just want to play guitar. But let's get into the IMDb review.
Oh my gosh, I have it
I'll
right
read
here.
it.
Oh no,
All
go
right,
for it, go for it.
I'll read it. So, Kathy Etchingham, the woman that Jimmy beats in the movie, the real woman, goes on IMDb and she drops a review about it. So let's look at it. Yes, it is garbage. 1 out of 10 stars. 1 star. Okay. The theater going, hoping to get some insight into Jimi Hendrix and London in 1966-67, will leave the theater disappointed or duped by the filmmakers. Before seeing the film, I was apprehensive, as I had been told that my character was portrayed in a derogatory and potentially defamatory manner. I had been told that Jimi had beaten me with a telephone in the film, and I had protested that this was not true. The filmmakers had replied that it was true because they had thoroughly researched me, quotations. In other words, they were saying that they were telling the truth and I was not. During the opening scenes, I found it difficult to comprehend the way the story was unfolding or what it was depicting. The editing was disjointed and dialogue was layered on top of alternate dialogue, seemingly from a parallel conversation. That does happen. It's really weird. It's like weird editing. The film progressed in a confusing and dull manner, but there was one scene that gave me a momentary lift of anticipation. The scene depicts Jimi playing with Cream at the Polytechnic Students' Union and should have set out to depict an absolutely epic event that I had witnessed. I had been carrying Jimi's guitar. I hoped that they would do Jimi justice in their interpretation of what happened. Unfortunately, once the music started, my heart sank. What a disappointment. Sin number 4. Not only was it insulting to Jimi's legacy, but I would say it was fairly insulting to Eric Clapton as well, because the real Eric Clapton would have never been in awe of the unremarkable performance presented to viewers in this film. The storyline progressed in an awkward and illogical way and was hard to comprehend. The basis seemed to be that the dim-witted Jimi could not make up his mind between the good rock chick, Linda Keith, and the bad rock chick, Kathy Etchingham, her, who later goes bonkers and takes an overdose. If I was the actress having to play this lousy part wearing those ugly clothes, I may have taken an overdose too. The strange fact that jars with this fictional narrative is that, in reality, the unfortunate Linda Keith ended up in rehab at around this time because Keith Richards, of all people, initiated an intervention that probably saved her life. She was hardly in a position to be advising Jimi on how to play the guitar and do his hair. Yes. Fictional characters were introduced that furthered the diluted political, racist, and sexist agenda that John Ridley seemed to be pursuing. In particular, Malcolm X was presented as a saintly black political guru, whereas in truth he was a violent criminal con man who was executed for a gruesome murder. An Ida character is introduced who never existed in real life. That was the lady who was in Jimmy's ear about the cheating and stuff.
Yeah.
The biggest disappointment of this film was that after expecting at least some kind of depiction of Jimmy's humor and creativity and the amusing and creative times that were happening in London, instead we were shown a gloomy and depressing dark tale that pictured Jimi as some sort of moronic, mumbling mystic with no ambition. Instead of showing Jimi touring the UK and Europe, writing and performing the most innovative music of the century, we are shown scenes of banal mumblings, fictitious gratuitous violence, and fictitious mental breakdowns and overdoses. My initial anxiety turned to scorn for the thoroughly bad screenplay and direction. I became bored and impatient for the rest of the film. The fictional nature of the film left me feeling that the events I was watching were more akin of a made-for-DVD movie than a biopic. I felt that I wasn't watching an interpretation of real events from the time, but a rather stiff and poorly depicted mashup of trivia from events described in my book, sprinkled over Ridley's racially driven fictional theme. Even the imaginary domestic violence, mental breakdown, and drug use that my character was involved in did not evoke the emotional response I expected. I found myself feeling just that I had been watching other bad movies, impatient for it to just finish and spare me the indignity of having to watch another tiresome scene with wooden dialogue and disjointed editing. A short-sighted and somewhat offensive portrayal of Jimi and those around him at the time. Final verdict, fictional movie, 2 out of 10, biopic purporting to be based in fact, 1 out of 10 for spelling the names right.
Yeah. You were mentioning, I'm so glad you put that last part. You were mentioning the test. Is like, does this movie become better or worse if it's not Jimi? It's like a fictional character.
A fictional character.
And personally, to me, if I was watching this and it would be a fictional character, I would be, first of all, why the hell am I rooting for this guy? Why in the actual fuck am I rooting for this guy?
What she said,
guy's
moronic. Yes. No ambition.
And he's not. And just because he wears like new styles and he plays guitar loud, like the movie would have ended and I would have thought to myself, wow, he's going to go to US and bomb.
I didn't know we were making movies about bad musicians. Is this supposed to be like the Joker, where
yeah, like for real? It's like we're going to the U.S. for the first time, and it's like, bro, that would have been a tragedy. It should have been a tragedy, like, because like
Yeah.
there's no indication that this dude would have been a success, other than there's a few times where the guitarists around him get fed up with him and leave the stage because he's playing his stuff, right?
I
Like Eric
don't.
Clapton's like, oh my god, and just leaves the stage. Like over something like you watch that you go, I guess he's good. Like
Yeah. Would you have rather just watched an hour and a half live performance than this movie?
I'd rather have watched. Do you know the festival that they're going to at the end of the movie? You can
Yeah.
actually watch that. It is half an hour long. It's on YouTube. It is incredible. He lights a guitar on fire at the end, and he
Go
still
watch that.
has it plugged in. Bajillion times better than this movie.
Yeah.
Save
Go watch
yourself the
that.
time. You're gonna see Jimmy
That's
actually
really all you
perform his
need.
music, talk on stage the way he does, do some crazy guitar stuff, and watch a moment in history all in one. Watch that. Go home and watch that. Don't watch
Go.
this
Yeah.
movie. Oh
Go
my
watch this.
god.
So as a Jimi Hendrix connoisseur, if you had the budget was only 5 million, but if you had $5 million to make a Jimi Hendrix biopic, how would you have done it, Lewis?
Um, you know what? If I had a Jimi Hendrix biopic, what I would do is split up, do a snapshot first and foremost. That they do have right. But I want to do a snapshot of Jimi Hendrix in New York with the Electric Ladyland studio because I feel like that's
Yeah.
a very interesting point of his career where he's doing the really rough transition, especially for a guy like him, from guitarist that doesn't have to think about what his manager is doing to him
Yeah.
having to be his own manager, run his own studio, and possibly run all of his label shit by himself.
Yeah.
In a time or place that's actually like he wanted to come back to New York because he wants to be closer to the African American music scene.
Yeah.
And he wants to be like that bridge between what's going on in California, what's going on in London, and have a studio that he can control himself. But I feel like that comes with all types of problems he never, ever, ever imagined. On top of that, New York is a rough place for a musician. More than
Yeah.
London, more than San Francisco at the time. And I think that he didn't like that would have been a very interesting story
You would
because
have
it's
some
not
drama there because there's
it's not
pressure.
yeah, the pressure isn't so much about like proving to be the best. Like, okay, how am I gonna keep this studio alive? Like, I'm the highest
Yeah.
paid rock star of all time, but like, there's so many things that there's so many moving pieces, and he kind of got thrusted with it. Cause Chaz said he was gonna take care of it, and he did. He even got his band together, and then out of
Yeah.
nowhere, in the middle of recording his most important work, Chaz is like, I can't do this, dude. You're gonna have to take care of this because you're all over the place. Like, I wish you the best. Like, I'm not trying to fuck with you, but like, I can't. And
Yeah.
I think that would have been an interesting story, and it would have tied into like some more deeper reasons of why he was doing the music he did. Because it's one thing like gaining uh, for this movie, the main struggle is like getting to being able to be a working musician, which isn't even true. Like, I mean, Jimmy wasn't doing well, but he wasn't struggling. He's not
He
like
had
on his
gigs.
last dime. And
Yeah.
he's been working and touring and doing all that stuff and being in the studio. We even have studio recordings from before the Hendrix experience of
Yeah,
it.
we do.
Like, and so I don't think that's like in order to make that interesting, it has to be fictitious. And
I think if you
there's
have to
not a whole
be
lot of drama to
fictitious,
like,
yeah.
hey, listen to this record. They put it on. Wow, this is really different and crazy. End of movie. Like that doesn't really show anything about our protagonist overcoming obstacles.
Yeah, it's just wow, that guy can play the guitar. Holy shit.
Now he's famous. The end.
The credits roll.
While the other one is like interesting. Like now he is the highest paid musician of all time at that time, and he has to
Yeah,
stay
now,
there in an environment he's
yeah,
not used to, doing music, doing new music, doing all these responsibilities that are not entrusted to musicians at that time in general.
yeah. I mean, his studio from the Electric Land studio is still a studio
Yeah,
today, and like Voodoo by D'Angelo was recorded there, and a lot of the neo soul movement was recorded there, like Erica Badu
yeah, and
to this day. His legacy.
his legacy, and not just that. Like you can feel his legacy way more in. I mean, you can definitely feel his legacy in London, but like in New York, it's like him just getting there changed jazz in New York. Like how it was done, like it brought to the forefront ideas that would lead to fusion.
Yeah, I mean, heavily influenced Miles Davis
Yeah,
and
like
people like George Clinton.
exactly.
Like,
And
would you have shown his childhood?
maybe in flashbacks, but like it's like you would have to do the overly sentimental thing about the mom, which I don't think is fair or interesting, or really like
Okay.
captures the reason why he does music in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, I I just think I think like early biography could be used just to get an idea of like what motivates this dude to make music uh stylistically. Like none of this movie captured for me a really essential part, which sounds really stupid, but when I say it out loud, which is his love of playing guitar.
Yeah.
It doesn't
That's why he
capture
was so
that
good at
at
it.
all. He like this dude was obsessed. Like this dude would sleep with his guitar, like in his hand,
Yeah.
and he didn't think it was weird. By the way,
No, it was just this is what he does.
is like from the first time I picked it up, from before he picked it up, he's like I knew what I wanted to do, and it's got nothing to do with like to being the best artist. Like he didn't even want to be the main artist in his band. He just kind of got thrusted into it. Like, well, and he just keeps on practicing. You know that would be my story for Hendrix for what he is.
Well, anything honestly would have been better than this.
Yeah, leave the romance to the side. Like that's not the major concern of his life. Like you could play like the activism part, but honestly, from what I see, it's just that he wants to be in good graces of the other bands. He's not a dick, and he's against the Vietnam War because, duh.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
So is everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all you really had to do, because who's gonna watch this? Jimmy fans, people who love how he plays the guitar, other guitarists that love Jimmy. All you really gotta do is capture this guy's sheer work ethic and love of the guitar. His kind of he's a little goofy, his aloof personality, his far out personality, and just show some epic moments, man. That's really it.
Yeah, and get the rights next time. And and one more thing about
Yeah.
the Electric Ladyland is that all of the recordings, all of the side recordings are out. The Foundation has them, and they have them remastered as well. So you can
Yeah.
listen to like just individual guitar tracks on Spotify or on Apple Music. And I'm like, that would be super useful for scenes where you just want to have him playing the
Yeah.
part. Uh, I think that helped a lot for the Beach Boys movie, Love and Mercy.
Yes.
Is that the fact that
Yes.
they had those on hand, and it gives this sense of like you're seeing this album slowly be constructed, even though it's not the main idea. It's really nice to see.
Yeah, that does help a lot, which they have for Jimmy, but they couldn't use his music because another thing you don't do if you're gonna make a Jimmy movie is spread misinformation about him
There's
being
still madness.
a woman beater.
It's
That's
bad.
pretty
I
bad.
want to move. Like man, no wonder the Foundation looked at this and like absolutely not. No,
And then he just made it
no.
anyways. Wait, is that even legal? Can you do that? Just make it anyways?
They could sue for defamation. I'm surprised they have it because the way that Hendrix Foundation handles copyright is already like, whoa, you know?
Yeah.
There's I dare you to go on YouTube and find a tutorial of a Hendrix song that isn't muted now because they use like 2 seconds of his music
Yeah.
because they protect that shit. And like, thank God
Yeah.
they did. I would have hated if this movie was like depicted actual music of Jimi Hendrix along with him beating a woman. Like that would have been
Yeah.
terrible.
I think maybe they didn't sue because they would be better if everybody just forgot this was made.
And thank God, because I struggled to find reviews for this movie. That made me very happy. That
Well,
made me
the
super
budget
happy.
the budget was 5 million, but the box office was a little less than 1 million. So they blew $4 million.
That makes me so happy.
How do you like just the right move was just to not do anything, and
The
you
right move
you
would have
did
been
something,
Andre 3000 being like, "You guys can't do this."
and the movie was just never made.
Yeah, Andre could have stopped this, and that's why at Clemenai, 8 out of 10.
He would have got a 9.
It would have got a 9, but I'm not gonna forget Andre. You can't hide from me, Andre. You can't
All
pan
right.
flute your ass out of this.
So any more thoughts on Jimmy before we'll talk a little bit about Love and Mercy and Piece by Piece, and then we have a secret final segment for everybody.
No, get him out of here.
Yeah, sorry, no more Jimmy. All
Fuck
right,
you,
in
Jimmy,
50
bro.
years, when they decide to make the next Jimmy movie, please contact anybody with like a brain, just anybody who
Just
has passion for this person. There's a million
listen,
guitarists on this world.
watch, read the script, and then listen to Electroland and see if they feel the same. Because if they don't, you got it wrong.
You're wrong. I mean, if this was a movie not about Jimmy and just about a blues guitarist, would you still watch it? No.
No,
And if the answer is no, go back, rewrite that script.
I'd probably watch the Bohemian Rhapsody before I watch this one.
No, this one is really bad.
Yeah,
This is like actually one of the worst movies like I
I'm
think
so
I've
I'm so
seen.
glad I'm like not. I'm so glad you watched it and told me that. I had a fear that I was being like, "Oh, you're just saying that because you're a fanboy." Like, it's not really that bad, but you're
No,
like
it's like
on
it's a
every
bad
scale.
movie.
Yeah,
You're like I would rather okay, this movie is actually worse than a bad movie because okay, let's like The Room, a very famous bad movie. That movie is at least funny, so bad it's good.
no,
This
this
movie
one
is
makes you
just
feel empty.
bad.
It's like I've
It
just
shows
felt empty afterwards.
it's you can't even make fun of it, and then it commits defamation. So it's like it just goes even worse into the hole.
You're like, dude, come on.
Like so it really just should not have ever been made.
Yeah,
It has no redeeming qualities.
I hate it so much. Get it out of here.
Okay, get out of here. Let's go to a good movie
Okay.
that I was so happy to watch. Love and Mercy.
What's your initial thoughts? Because I already saw it a long time ago. Nick has yet to tell me what he thought of the movie.
Um, I loved it. I had to immediately go and re-listen to Pet Sounds right after I watched it.
Immediately.
For anyone who doesn't know, it's a movie about Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, and sort of like we were talking about the snapshot thing. It's like two snapshots. It goes from when he's young and he's making pet sounds and he's recording it, and there's a bit of drama going on with the band and himself, his mental state,
Mm.
and it flashes forward to an older Brian Wilson who is having this very toxic relationship with his psychologist, and his psychologist has him under a guardianship and is like basically a big brother over his shoulder, and that part is guided with a romance with I believe it was his wife. He would marry this woman,
Yes.
and it flashes in between these two, young Brian Wilson, old Brian Wilson, played by two different actors. And this movie does such a good job. It makes you
We're not going to spoil it
love
too
it.
much because
Yeah.
I really do want you guys to go see it at some point.
Yes.
This is how
It's a good
biopics
movie.
should be made. First of all, it's a great movie. Whether or not it's a Brian Wilson,
Passes the
regardless,
test.
the story is fantastic and the
Passes the
acting
test.
is great. Like, okay, a lot of these other movies, like it would be like the one dude that's playing the famous dudes. No, like the famous dudes are well acted with shitty scripts,
Yeah.
but like it's just like the one famous dude doesn't feel like more real, less wooden than everyone else, and you can notice it like very anime main character sort of syndrome. And
Yeah,
here's like
like
no,
Bohemian
every
Rhapsody.
character is like on point, fully realized, complex. I'm
Yes.
like, yeah,
And Brian Wilson is like not the easiest, I feel like, to portray because he really did have a lot of psychological issues and he was
and
going
they
through
do
it.
it with a lot of empathy. Like he didn't use it as an excuse to be a dick. They didn't make stuff up for the film. This also something else. Okay, the psychologist is a piece of shit. Very hard to not demonize him. For years, for decades maybe, uh, lovers of Pet Sounds have demonized Mike Love because Mike Love was very, very against that album from
Hmm.
the get go. And they honestly show him pretty reasonably here. It's like, hey
Oh,
man, this
okay.
is our worst selling album, and we kind of have to move forward. And sure, he's a dick about it, but like I don't see the full demonization that I see in other movies where it's like one
Yeah.
dimensional. We have to write hits every time. Like he's like, dude,
Yeah.
we built up this legacy. Like we can't
Yeah,
mess it up.
the movie portrays Mike Love as being very apprehensive of something so experimental as Pet Sounds because the Beach Boys they made a lot of money making, the surf rock, you know.
And it's a time in their career they're losing ground to other psychedelic artists, and
Yeah.
and they felt that Mike Love, and he has gone on interviews and say this publicly, like he felt that they would lose even more ground, like, and they did. Pet Sounds was the worst selling album they put out at the time.
At the time. At least, well, I mean, today it's highly appraised, and
It's highly
I like that the
appraised,
movie
yeah,
ends. The movie ends and says Pet Sounds is now known as being one of the greatest albums ever recorded.
yeah. And if you guys haven't
But
listened to Pet Sounds, pause this, listen to Pet Sounds, and come back. But
then come back, okay?
please
But
listen to Pet Sounds.
actually, go watch this movie because
It'll make
you
you
feel
want
it so much.
to listen to Pet Sounds, by the way. It doesn't spoil Pet Sounds, and it also makes you want to immediately listen to it. That's the sign of a good biopic. It's like you finish the
Yes,
biopic, you're like, wow, I understand that art is so much better. Let me listen to your art and appreciate it so much better.
and that is the goal.
That's
The
true.
goal of a
Exactly.
biopic is to make you get the story behind it so you can love the music more. It's got to always be about the music. It's not about your melodrama, dog. It's not about your cosplay. It's about the music.
Yeah, but coming out of Bohemian Rhapsody, I just felt, oh my God, that was so much Queen. Oh my God, I'm done with like Queen music for like a good week. Like,
I'm queened out.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
skipping it the second it comes up on a playlist. I'm no
And the
queen.
Jimmy one is like, Jimmy beats women? I don't want to listen to his music now. Why would I want to do that? He's a terrible person.
Right?
And
Like,
this one
don't
is
make me
like,
feel bad.
yeah, like even like even Rocket Man, I came out being like, you know, Elton John does seem kind of cool. Like I should check out his stuff. But like this one for sure is like, wow, getting every like not just that, it's just like the feel of it. The feel of it is like dreamy sometimes. The editing
Hmm?
was fantastic. The editing, like, wow.
Yes. No, there's some cool moments where they let the music speak through and like can invigorate a scene, and it works really well with the fact that there's the young Brian Wilson who's making the music, and then there's the old Brian Wilson who's going through this romance. And there are parts where like God only knows he's making God only knows, and then it will like move the scene to the old Brian Wilson, and then God only knows is playing while he's having this romantic scene with his soon to be wife,
Yeah.
and it's like using the music, and that goes into sin number five, which is the opposite. it's making me feel something. It's not just people talking. It has interesting segments. There's like a recreation of Sloop John B in the movie of the music video,
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
there's some trippy scenes. And that's why I like it because when I say that, I'm not asking it to be like crazy, like piece by piece, but that's an animation where it's like really like
Yeah,
colorful
this
or
this
whatnot.
doesn't
You
have to
can
be a
do it
Kubrick.
subtly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can do it in a more normal way, which is what this movie is doing, and I think it really fits the Beach Boys vibe because they always did have this vibe to me of being very American and very like relatable. I mean, they're just trying to have fun, and Pet Sounds is relatable in a different way to a
Mhm.
lot of people, and I feel like the movie captures it.
Okay, so the five sins. Let's see if the movie does the reverse of the five sins.
All right, number one, I don't think it switches dates around.
It doesn't. There might be,
It
but
doesn't
that's
really
it.
say dates.
It doesn't really like that's yeah. It avoids that problem by not having specific dates, not doing
Yeah,
famous shows, you know,
yeah,
not doing guys cosplaying the show, you know, and
yeah.
to do that
There's the
for other musicians that like you have footage of their shows. Why are you trying to compete with? Like, you really trying to compete with like a Hendrix show? Good luck, buddy. Like, good luck, bro.
he lights the guitar on fire.
No, I'm super serious. And he does it like super casually. And I'm like,
Oh my
you
God.
can't like even if like even if you were to put that in the movie, because it's a movie, people would go, man, come on, right?
It's cosplay. You're LARPing. You can't
Not
you
even
can't
that. It's like
it's lightning in a
it's not
bottle, you
it
know?
doesn't have the wow factor because the wow factor when you see it in a concert movie is like, oh, that's real. Like he's like really going for it. Like that's in a show. No second take, no first take. It's like
Yeah.
this guy betted his entire performance on his ability to create noise in this really weird way. It's like
Yeah.
that's sort of like wow, that adventurousness kind of gets sucked out when you realize that this is like the 50th take by this actor who's not really
Yeah,
playing the instrument.
yeah.
So
You're not
even if
gonna
they got it
Kubrick it,
shot
dog.
for shot of whatever concert video they got, it doesn't have the
But
same effect.
Love and Mercy does do a couple times where they try to mimic stuff, and this credit goes to Paul Dano, who plays the young Brian Wilson.
Yeah.
There is one part where he is recreating a studio performance of Brian Wilson playing the piano for Surf's Up. And Paul Dano actually like learned every little inflection of his voice and like mimicked exactly how that studio footage of Brian Wilson playing Surf's Up is, and that hits so hard because
Yeah.
Surf's Up is a
Is
heavy hitting song.
oh my gosh. One of his
And
greats.
so when the movie does choose to like, I guess this would be sin 1 and 4, but like when it does choose to copy a moment in history, a performance, Paul Dano just he just became Brian Wilson for this
Yes.
movie.
I think that's different from other because they avoid a problem by not having it be an audience moment or a historical moment. You know,
Yeah,
there's
it's
footage
a
of that moment. I haven't
yeah.
even seen it. I'm a huge Beach Boys fan, so I don't even have that footage to compare it to in my head. While the Woodstock one, everyone has seen Woodstock. Everyone has
Yeah.
seen Live Aid.
It's a much more interpersonal, kind of moment to have a recreation of.
Mm, yeah,
So I think it's better. It's
it is
better. You're
better.
not gonna
It
be
shows the
yeah.
character. All of these decisions are made with the artistic intent of showing character, like instead
Yes.
of the epic moments. That's
Yes.
really what separates this movie
And
from
that's
the other
better.
biopics.
Especially music so emotional and coming from a very emotional place like Pet Sounds. It's like mostly a love album. It's
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
not anthemic
depressing.
at all. It's not
Yeah,
anthemic.
it's
It's
not
not for
hype.
musicals. Like it's yeah. It, that's a problem with other biopics. Is like all these guys are pop artists, so you have to show a really sad song using pop music, and it's either going to come off as
Yeah.
one dimensional because that's what pop music is. It's sad or happy, one dimensional, but it's Just like it's not as crazy as interpersonal as Pet Sounds.
Yeah, and I can see the challenge there. I mean, it's a pretty good choice of a movie, but number two, just historical inaccuracies, just straight up lying.
Didn't really go into that. Even the Wrecking Crew looked accurate, dude. Like,
Yeah, yeah, there is one scene. Hold up, I wanted to whip up. I have it in my notes,
no, go get it.
but there is a lady who shows up, Carol Kay. She plays bass for the Wrecking Crew, and she's a very, very stout bass. I mean, the bass lines in Pet Sounds are phenomenal.
Mhm.
And there is one shot of her in the movie, but it doesn't do the fucking Jimi Hendrix things where like it stops the camera and it goes, Carol Kay. Like it
No.
doesn't do that. But I know as a fan of the Pet Sounds and knowing about her, it's a shot where she's got like these got blonde hair like this, and she's got like these white glasses, and it's like mimicking that famous photo of her playing the bass.
Yeah.
And I can tell that it's like instead of saying her name, it's showing and not telling. Like because I knew who that was because I recognized it's like trying to copy that famous image of her.
hmm Yeah. Same thing with like you see the other the other Beach Boys, and they don't like introduce each other by name like some fictitious characters.
Yeah, because they're all brothers
Yeah,
or
they know each
cousins.
other.
Yeah,
They're like, "Hey, man, what's up? Hey, brother, what's good?" Like,
yeah, they love each other. There's no tragic. There's not. It's not being overly tragic. Yet. There's some sad things that did
I mean,
happen.
the
You know, they
dad
were abused.
is full.
Yeah, the dad was a terrible person, and the psychologist was terrible. But you know, when it comes to the way they're not treating Brian like he's this tragic figure, they're like genuinely concerned for his health
Yeah,
because he's a human being and their brother.
yeah, and it's not like these guys got the other people like in on their side, and
Yeah,
it's much more like, yep, yep, dad's a dick. He comes to the studio, be a dick. I don't like it either. But what you
yeah,
gonna
it's
do?
fucking sucks. He's been doing this for like 5 years now, so he sucks.
Yeah, yeah, and like also I do think it's really interesting, specifically for this movie, not biopics in general. I do love that the dad and the psychologist are reflections of each other, in
Yeah,
where the the dad is like pushing him to be less like himself, more like his brothers,
yeah,
to ignore his inner feelings, while the psychologist like ignore listen. You gotta listen. You gotta you gotta ignore the outside world. Just listen to your inner feelings. I fully accept you no matter what. Just don't get corrupted by the world. And that's why
yeah,
he can manipulate him because the dad gave him the exact opposite. You know,
yeah. And I always thought the reason why, I mean, this is the speculation,
it
but the
is
reason why
speculation.
Brian got into this relationship with the psychologist was because he was missing that kind of relationship with his father.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not being overhead. Once again, we are speculating based on a character we saw. This
Yeah,
wasn't
but it's a
fed
good
to us.
movie and it makes you think,
Yeah.
like any good movie.
Uh, once again, please watch this. Please watch this. I don't want to spoil even more because it's really like, dude, is it at least a 9 out of 10 for me?
It's a great movie. I love the scenes that when they're working with the Wrecking Crew and it's just Brian trying to teach them to make the sound like a turbine
Oh
of the
yeah,
cellos. Remember that?
yeah,
And it's just
yeah,
like a turbine, and like Brian, the way, because this is a advantage of the movie that they do have so much film of them making pet sounds
yeah.
that he can just mimic it. But Brian, like the way he captures the way Brian worked with musicians and the way he worked as a producer was so genuine,
Oh yeah,
but
it
also
doesn't
so,
have
so
him on the
cool.
road with like bitches. It's like no, he's in the studio. Like he's not in
Yeah.
boardrooms arguing with a record producer. He's in the studio working on his stuff.
He's working. These are
He's being an
professional
artist.
musicians. They have a
Oh
job.
my god, you just now pointed out, dude, like that is something that like I loved about the movie is that 50-60% of it is like them in the studio and it's not them like being like arguing before they try stuff. It's like him.
No.
They're having frank discussions of like, "Hey, man, we've been at the cellos for like 50 takes. What's going on?" They're not like, "Hey, we
Yeah.
should cut the cello thing. We should make some pop music." Like, no, no, no. They're like, "Listen, maybe we can work on something else." Like,
It's very realistic on how an actual studio conversation or
yeah,
argument would go,
yeah.
you know,
Even with
and
how eccentric Brian is, he's still like, I hear you. I'm trying to get in everything. You
he,
know,
he tries to work. He's not like oh,
you guys
I'm
don't
an
like my
artist.
artists.
I'm an
You
artist
guys don't see my
about it.
vision.
Yeah, he's not a diva about it. And definitely go watch this movie, everyone.
No,
This movie
yeah,
made me so
please,
happy. It's,
please.
as I said, when I came into this, I thought there was no good biopics, and then this movie happened,
And now
and I realized you could do a good biopic.
it's possible. It's just you gotta like it. You gotta actually do it for something other than the money. Believe it or not, crazy how filmmaking works.
Yeah, but let's go to a little bit about a piece by piece. Is not like I said, it's not a biopic. It's a
No, it's a biopic.
autobiography.
It's a
It's
biopic
a
that recognizes itself as a biopic.
Yeah, but it's also an autobiography. This one's interesting because it's made by who it's about.
It's made by who it's about. It's shot in Legos.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a Lego movie, which is
It's a musical in a lot of sense. Like,
yeah,
and it's not doing like a musical like, oh, it's like recreating Pharrell's like best shows, but it's a musical of like, okay, what point in their what did the studio look like when they were producing this song and this song?
yeah,
Once
yeah.
again,
Just the behind the scenes kind of,
very
you know.
very good sign because they're in the studio most of the movie.
Hmm. It's almost like Pharrell was a producer.
It's almost like he's a working musician with a career.
Yeah, they have a job to do, and that's in the beginning of the movie. Remember, there's a point where he's young and he gets a record contract, but he kind of just they let him do his thing because he's
Yeah,
like 17. But it's showing the inner dynamics of going to a big studio and just helping people out with songs and whatnot.
yeah, and building himself up and not just be like, oh, and then the top record dude realized he had talent. No, you gotta build yourself up. You gotta be like, you gotta do a little bit of that, a little bit of that. You gotta come up with interesting ideas, and then people will start seeking you out for work. And that really
Yeah,
organic process. I love that organic process was shot in a kids movie because I know that the vast majority of the conversations of like, hey, we should show this more like professional setting for musicians. And they're like, no, the kids would be super bored. That would only be for adults. And, the kids don't understand what the studio is like and what record labels are like. Dude, like, they really showed it. And they didn't super dumb it down. Like, I was like, this is really impressive. This is
yeah.
great
It
storytelling.
destroys all the sins because first it's a completely accurate because it's Pharrell. He made the movie,
Right.
so he's telling the story.
Like, you might
But
gloss over stuff, but there's not, like, invented drama.
yeah, like it's what he feels like. The movie itself is an art piece because it's what he feels like his story is, you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
and that's why he
100%.
made it Legos. And there's for number four, it does capture how epic some of these songs were, and it was awesome that he produced them, like the Kendrick Lamar moment,
Yeah.
or with the Snoop Dogg, or when he like started working with rock with Gwen Stefani and stuff.
Yeah.
But most importantly, sin number five is that it's not just people talking; it's got a lot of style to it, and
It's got a lot
it's
of
a Lego
style, a
movie.
lot of humor, a lot of like
It's cool.
jokes, a lot of meta-ness to it. There is if you in case you guys haven't seen the movie, I'd recommend this. Not as much as Love and Mercy. Love and Mercy is fantastic. This one is
Yeah,
like a 7 out of 10. It's just like really really clever, really really
I think
really well put together.
if you really like the 2000s pop music that Pharrell produced, watch the
It's
movie
a good
because
time.
you'll love the movie.
It's a good
Yeah, it's
time.
if you like that era, great movie. Watch it.
It won't be any like the story. I guess the strength of it is not so much the story because it's very it's a very successful pop career in which not a whole lot of crazy stuff happens, but I think what's, as you're saying, is like they recognize this, and instead of being like, "Oh, I'm inventing stuff," they're like, "No, let's add some artistic flair to this. Let's add some humor to it. Let's add some
Some
humanity to
flair.
this. So let's think
Yes.
about like how this story is progressing, how we're showing this character. Um, oh, and top of all of this, something that's really missing in a lot of these biopics, especially the newer ones, is the bloomer, the life affirmation part of it. Because the reason why a lot of these
Yes.
people like these artists, especially when they're making pop, especially when they're making popular records, is they're life affirming. People listen to them when they want to be lifted up, and to
Yeah.
watch like this is like the exact opposite of the Jimmy movie, where it's like I you watch it to be like depressed, to be sad, and then at the very last moment, it's like, well, thank God he was a musician. Anyway, the end. Like, dude,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to get out of that? But like, I left the Pharrell movie being like, life is beautiful, bro. Life is fucking great.
It's a beautiful movie. The Legos
Yeah.
make it so vibrant and artistic, and it's really just a movie about a guy with an awesome life, just talking about his awesome life and
And some of the ways
how he
he
got
worked
there.
towards it, like, has
Yeah.
nothing. And there is some like parts where he like messed up here and there, but it's not like anyone backstabbed him. It's not like he got super crazy into drugs and had to go to rehab.
Yeah,
It's
he
not,
didn't beat a woman with a telephone at a club.
yeah, he didn't and it touches upon like he wants to make music to lift people up and maybe talk about injustices. That part was really interestingly designed because it didn't harp on itself, and it didn't become the main motivator for that music. It's just like, oh, I'm a famous musician with a platform now. I should probably say some stuff. I should probably support who I think necessary supportive. Also, a lot it feels way more truly collaborative than competitive. It gets that
Yeah,
part
yeah.
of the music super well. Love and Mercy, maybe not so, because Brian Wilson is still like he's kind of scrounging things up. He's kind of sometimes getting into discussions with his bandmates. It's not crazy. Like they want the best for him, they want the best for the band. But like this one is more like, okay, I got to work with this dude. Let me actually like, how do I reinvent myself to work with this dude and come
Yeah,
up with
part of
something
that comes
cool?
because Pharrell's a producer, first and
Yeah,
foremost, so he has to be collaborative.
he has to be collaborative, but like I feel like even more so nowadays, right? Music is becoming a collaborative thing, and that's something that a lot of people like about it. Something that a lot of people appreciate about it. A lot of people appreciate the Beatles because of the fact that they all did, for the most part, get along and love each other and try to like create some magic from each other's influences. Uh,
Yeah.
and I mean, a lot of these movies are like one diva and everyone puts up with them, and that kind of kills it. If it did have a positive message to begin with, it kind of kills it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the collaborative, especially with Piece by Piece, because did you know that all the people they did interviews with in the movie, they didn't know it was going to be a Lego movie?
That's
He didn't
hilarious.
he didn't tell them.
That is
They thought it was just going to be a documentary.
absolutely hilarious.
So they're all talking in Legos. But yeah, and all the people who show up in the movie, they do like little interviews. Um are just they just love Pharrell, and they're just talking about him out of pure love. And that's something that comes from the fact that he's a producer and the fact that he just is a very positive person. And I feel like hip hop and pop are more collaborative genres than like
Yeah,
rock would be.
it depends what type of rock music, but because mostly because back in the day, it's like it's your touring unit, you know.
Yeah.
But that's really the only reason. Like the guys that would stop touring would start messing around with everyone else. Like the Beatles, the minute they stopped touring, it was like, let's get a keyboardist. Let's get Eric Clapton on this song. Let's get George Martin to
Yeah.
do more violin shit. Like it's a that's a big part of the beauty of it, and none of these biopics talk about it. All of these biopics are like there's this source of inspiration and talents, and everyone else are just plebeians. They can't touch it. Stop.
Stop doing that. You're making them like gods, and it's weird. It's like it's cringe, dude.
Yeah,
It's
like the
just
Elvis movie, The
cringe.
King. You know, this like
Oh, the Elvis movie is weird. It makes him into like this mythical being, and like every time he plays guitars, all of the women drop their panties. And it's like the scene in the beginning of Walk Hard where he plays it at the talent show,
yeah.
and like everyone's like whoosh, and all their panties are dropping, and it's crazy.
And there's like a priest
The
that's like
El-
the devil's music.
yes, yes, and the Elvis movie did that unironically. Like,
It's history repeats itself hilariously enough because what Dewey is trying to do is like I think there's another Elvis movie that did exactly that before the Dewey
yeah,
Cox movie. Then Dewey Cox made it, and then the new Elvis movie like kind of like took that again. I was like, bro,
yeah.
we gotta stop. We have to stop. It's
It's funny
time to
how
stop.
the Dewey Cox movie makes fun of everything. It makes fun of even like the Sergeant Pepper's Pet Sounds thing of
Yeah.
the guy does a bunch of LSD and he's got to have a gigantic studio with with like
Yeah,
goats
it's
in
making
it.
fun of the Brian Wilson story. Before even there was a Beach Boys movie to make fun of. They did that
Yeah, this
already.
came out 2007.
Yeah.
Walk Hard, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's something else. All of the biopics we talked about came after Rock Hard, and they didn't learn. None of them
They didn't
learned.
learn. None of
We
them
didn't
learned.
talk about a single pre 2007 biopic movie this entire time,
No,
and we're still
Jimmy
talking
is
about the egregious
yeah.
sins that appear in this parody movie.
It's crazy and it's a parody movie, so it's fine. But Jesus. All right. I
Yeah.
think that we can move to the final mystery segment.
Yes.
All right. So we wanted to bring a musician and us to theorize if we had, let's say, 50 million, the same as Bohemian Rhapsody, how would we do the David Bowie movie? Now, I did this. I picked Bowie because one, both of us love Bowie. Both of us think his story is pretty tight. I did this thinking there was no Bowie movie yet. But guess what, Lewis?
They're making one.
There is one that came out in 2020
Oh, hold on.
during
Let me search
COVID.
this up.
It's called Stardust, and it has a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, and
Oh, but this is wait. Hold
it
up.
made
What?
$9,000 in the box office.
Who is this dude? And why does he look like that?
Holy-
No way.
yeah, it made $9,000 in the box office. It's got a 4.4 on IMDb.
I am
So
never watching this piece of shit. I'm sorry, bro.
we're just gonna pretend this movie was never made.
Wait, hold on, hold on. I gotta see, bro. I'm blown away.
Exactly. I didn't realize this movie was made, but we're just gonna keep it that way.
Okay, this is pre-Stardust Bowie.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So if any of you want us to watch this horrible, likely terrible thing and review it, put it in the comments below. We'll watch it so you don't have to. We will subject
I
ourselves.
found I think this is like the damning like I'm never gonna watch this.
Why?
I'm reading the Wikipedia page. Bowie's estate did not approve of the film. Did not approve the film. Did not grant the rights to use Bowie's music. Instead, Stardust has Bowie performing covers the real Bowie performed in period, such as "I Wish You Would" by the Yardbirds and "Amsterdam" by Jacques Brel. Out of and I know Bowie and I know the covers he did. Those are two of the lamest covers you could possibly pick for this movie. Like
Yeah.
Amsterdam, Amsterdam, Amsterdam.
He's covered Velvet Underground songs. I know he's covered The Doors.
He's
He's
covered.
got some good covers.
I mean, he's covered Nina Simone. He's covered Aretha
But like,
Franklin. Like he's like,
but also, as we can tell with the Jimi Hendrix movie, if the estate does not give you the rights, you're doing something wrong. Like,
no. Once again, bro, if the estate hits you back up, being like, "Yo, we don't want this to come out," Like, it's not because you're putting out first of all, okay. It could be that you're putting out damning evidence against this dude, and you're essentially ruining his legacy. Or B,
Yeah, or like Jimi
it's
Hendrix.
not good. Like, it's like you're putting out something false. Yeah. The first one is either one. You're putting out something that would ruin this dude's legacy, or B, it's not good. Either of these two options, you shouldn't be making an album. Like
Yeah,
you can't present these guys with like a great script, and they're like, no, we don't want the opportunity to make money. No, thank you,
yeah,
because they should know better than anyone. They're artists selves, and people like their artists.
yeah. I mean, especially if you can't play the music, that's pretty bad, you know. And
It's pretty
that
bad.
should be the big green flag, the stop sign. You do not pass, you do not go. Just don't make the movie.
Like what are you hoping to achieve, really?
I mean, the movie made 60 grand for its global release, so you definitely blew a lot of money. And
Dreadful.
Bowie doesn't deserve that. So, Lewis, what does Bowie deserve?
Okay. I think what Bowie deserves is, I think one of the most interesting aspects of his career probably is most experimental, which was the going from low to scary monsters.
Yeah, later in his career?
Yes, and make a snapshot of that. I would actually try to avoid showing anything from my favorite album, Station to Station, because even Bowie doesn't remember how it was recorded. And I think I no, but like okay, hear me out. Artistically thinking so, I think it would be really cool that he's like grappling with his album, and just like the audience, he's like, dude, how did we even get here? Like, what the fuck? Because that's
I
really
think
like,
you could do station to station, but because the whole Thin White Duke is really
no,
interesting.
you could do it, and it could be interesting. But what I think it would be interesting is that you're making low, and he's remembering little bits and pieces of the his coked out era while
Mm.
making low. Like, damn, you know? Because
Ooh, and I love Low. Low is like one of my favorite Bowie albums. So like, because Low to me is very introspective,
extremely.
and it really comes from a persona of like, I fucked up, I did some bad things, but do you still love me?
There's
Please love
that.
me.
There's also he's working with, like brand new guys, and around this time he's also working with other guys that are coming back that also are in the
Yeah,
same boat. Like the most famous example is Iggy. Like Iggy as a
yeah,
character would be fantastic in that. And there's like this thing of Bowie is helping him out, not because like he's hoping to get money out of him, but because he's like, I love what you did for the world of music. I want this shit to continue, and I see potential in that. And um, and while he's doing that with Iggy, it's reflecting Brian Eno's attitude towards Bowie,
yeah,
where
yeah.
it's like,
Because
hey
Brian
man,
Eno is
I know you messed up. I know you did some crazy shit. I know John Lennon doesn't talk to you anymore, which is true, by the way. Because of Young Americans, after that, they're on no speaking terms. He became, so during the glam rock era, he became friends with all these rock stars that are coming
yeah,
out of the 60s,
yeah,
right? And it's good friends. They even collab a bunch of albums. And he like destroys all of those friendships during
yeah.
the Young
When Bowie has
Americans.
his Coke era.
Yeah. And a lot of Low gives that feeling of loneliness, of like, what was I thinking, sort of attitude
Yeah,
towards his past relationships, that I think would make an incredible story. And I don't, not to say there can't be there isn't some drama in the Ziggy Stardust era, but like, I feel like you're just gonna get into the same traps if you try to tackle that. If you try to
if you try to
tackle,
tackle that, it's gonna be another sports movie.
yeah, and that's not what audiences want. And Bowie during this era also, even through his music, is answering a lot of like, why am I still doing this? Right?
Yeah,
He's moving very far, very, very far away from what is glam rock days. and into
Yeah.
completely new inspirations, and really like testing himself on like his love of his craft. Uh, Personally, that would be my perfect Bowie movie.
Also, if you do Low, the second half of Low is kind of like a movie soundtrack
Yes,
because
I'm
it's all
still thinking about that. I'm
instrumental.
thinking like all of those albums from the Berlin trilogy have
Yeah.
like segments that like either can be used as a soundtrack or can lay inspiration for a soundtrack. Um,
Yeah. You can have a really good moment with Heroes because that's from the same era.
exactly, and it and it being electronic um will also give more incentives to whoever's making this movie to avoid doing the live show thing and show more of the David Bowie in the studio sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And you got like cool people who can show, like you said, Brian Eno, Iggy Pop. There's also Robert Fripp.
Oh, bro, if you got Robert
Yeah,
Fripp
yeah,
there,
King Crimson.
uh,
I
you
don't know
know,
if he'll allow himself to be in the movie.
no, he's like, I think he'll let it if the character never smiles.
Okay, here we go. And he takes down one YouTube video for copyright.
No, like in the middle of the movie, he opens up a laptop. He's like, and Bowie's like, "What are you doing? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it." There's so much that's going on, and uh, there's the fact that Bowie's producing like new music that's uh, very very different from what his core audience is listening to. That's always a good
Yeah.
part in the career to pick, very transitionary part to pick. Um, what what else? We're avoiding the trappings of the '60s. I think a lot of these biopics, when they start '50s or '60s, is like everyone is going through the same exact phase at the same exact time. Everyone's going through their country phase, their psychedelic phase, their jingle pop phase, and
Yeah.
yeah,
If I was doing Bowie, I wouldn't really want to talk about the early Bowie because it's not really
it's not,
his
yeah,
best.
and also this is sobering up Bowie. This is
Yeah.
post, and you don't really need to see someone getting into drugs. There's a bajillion different movies that are way more interesting about that subject matter in the first place. And second of
Yeah.
all, the way they're gonna do it in music movies always sucks. Always sucks because you never
It's
see
the
the
same
rehab.
story.
You never see the rehab. They're like, he went to rehab and then he was better. Okay, where's the struggle?
Yeah, there's no struggle. This movie would be about that essentially. And then you can have the flashbacks of the Young Americans Bowie and the Station to Station Bowie and like him hallucinating because he's only doing coke and milk and all
Yeah,
that.
and so personally, that would be my go-to. Uh, you?
I think that's good. For me, I mean, I like that a lot. I don't really think you can. I don't know how you can do. I would want to have a movie where there's different actors playing Bowie. If you're gonna do a more expansive one,
Oh,
you would want like it
okay.
would be like the Bob Dylan one, where there's different actors because Bowie's a musical chameleon and he's always changing his character and changing his persona. I would make it much more artistic and to try to like constantly change the vibe to the albums as they go and make it like, you can tell which part of his life we're talking about based off what the vibe is because it would match the album. Like Hunky Dory is going to be a lot about the art house scene. Then Ziggy is when it's very glam rocky. Then you go Young Americans, and now we're getting into the coke, and it starts getting darker. And then I would probably also end it at Low, because Low is really like
No,
the very
I'm ending it
revelatory.
at Scary Monsters. Personally,
Why Scary Monsters? I
because
feel like
Scary
then he
Monster
would.
is like when he broke out of that character thing that he was doing,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
it's like I finally have the ambition to not just hide my world behind like substances, but hide myself behind my characters. Like I finally have the ambition to not do that and to just write music as David, or
yeah.
at the very least to be like really open about it. Is like, hey, every single time I take on these albums, I'm playing characters, and I kind of feel like I'm going crazy sometimes. And
Yeah, that is what Scary Monsters is about.
yeah, I feel like that's why it encapsulates it way better. Because low is like the beginning of that. The low is for me is like the lowest point. It's like where he has to start rebuilding shit.
Yeah,
And
it's rock bottom.
I feel like also what would be interesting to me is like with the flashbacks or with some of the more abstract parts of the film, what would be to treat these different personas as part of his psychology
Mm,
and
but- Yeah,
have them played by different actors, as you point out. That would be very interesting.
I
It'd
think
be
that would be
ambitious.
the combination of our two ideas with the flashbacks, the way they're filmed, and the way there's different actors. Because honestly, if you were someone who had a period of your life where you were very addicted to drugs and you look back on it from a sober point of view, it does feel like a different person.
It feels like a
Like that
completely
wasn't me.
different
I've
person.
changed.
And that's something I feel a lot in not just his interviews but his music as well. As like
Yes.
that, there's he literally feels detached. He feels disconnected from his past self.
Yeah.
Um, no, it's I want to try to emulate that in the best way possible, and not just have a drunk Jimi Hendrix. Like
Basically.
he a drunk Jimi Hendrix that just becomes like he gets like one sip of alcohol, he becomes like Mr. Hyde out of fucking nowhere, you know?
Basically, yeah, it turns into the Thin White Duke.
I feel like the Thin White Duke for me represents his ambition and his like ego of like I don't care what anyone says. I'm the fucking
Yeah.
best. I'm the
Yeah.
best, and they're scum, you know. And Ziggy got that wonder to it, you know that, and this like is like I love creating and life is beautiful and oh my god, you know,
Yeah, well,
and
he's a rock star from Mars, so
and like that's
that's when it
what
was good.
yeah.
The Thin White Duke is when it gets corrupted. If we had the movie, the Thin White Duke is the main villain.
The Thin White Duke would be the main villain. It's like Bowie like in low being like what are you like Thin White Duke showing up and be like what are you doing?
Yeah.
Is like where's your army of musicians, bro? Like what is like you're just like with this no name new age producer. Like
That's so below
this isn't
you.
gonna sell. No one can shake ass to this. Instead of the record label, because Bowie doesn't give a fuck what the record label thinks. So like
No.
any scene that word like the record executive like I think you should put out a pop song is just gonna be once again it's gonna feel like that. But if it's the Thin White Duke being like
It's himself.
this is kind of shit,
Yeah.
you know.
It's his own opinions. Especially Low, because Low is so weird. I mean, half the album is instrumental.
Half the not just instrumental, just ambient late night creepy instrumental.
Yeah, like very like there's like African like vocals, and it's
Oh,
very
eh.
you know it's a it's not what you think when I think of Young Americans or like glam rock era Bowie.
Yeah, and you once again you got heroes and am I missing one. There's Lodger.
Lodger.
Lodger
Hey,
is lo-
you can,
I like Lodger, but once again, it's not a it's not a fantastic album.
you can
It's a
kind
good
of
album.
yeah. I mean, that's just the Berlin trilogy. You're making the movie on the Berlin trilogy
I would
because
because that's the most interesting part for me.
yeah, and I think there we go. Everyone, we're gonna get this video out. Anyone wants to give us $50 million?
To make a movie,
We
please.
got you.
Yo, we've listened to
Come
Bowie
on.
so much, and we've watched quite a few biopic movies with notes,
Yes.
so we can do it. We can do
Please.
it. Please, 50 million.
50 million, 50 million.
50,
Come on, come on,
50
come on.
million, I promise you, we'll have the same exact success as Bohemian Rhapsody. Trust.
Yes.
Trust.
Yes. Come
Everyone's
on.
gonna unanimously love this movie. What could go wrong?
It's just $50 million. Come on.
We'll settle for
You guys are
5.
making a
You know
Bruce
what? Okay.
Springsteen movie. Wait, you guys made a movie on Bob Dylan. He's not even a good musician. And there's nothing good about his life. There's just
we
he's just
lost 5 subscribers from that one comment alone.
all right. Well, they're gonna grow up, and then they're gonna resubscribe when they realize Bob Dylan is not a good musician. I'm sorry if I have to hear another harmonica solo by Bob Dylan. I'm just gonna crash my car into a fucking tree.
I
I
would
can't.
love for like some like music snob that like listens to Bob Dylan to be like listening to this shit and be like, well, you guys like Megadeth, so like it doesn't matter.
All right, you do you, Chief. Once more. No. It will.
Hey, Jimmy loved Bob Dylan. He loved Bowie too,
But
but
Jimmy beasted on Bob Dylan. Are you kidding me? He beasted on him so hard. Bob Dylan later said that Jimmy now owns that song.
yeah, that's like when that's a natural reaction to Jimi Hendrix covering your song, brother. Like that's like it's like the reaction of like when J. Cole got this by Kendrick and J. Cole's like, I'm not even, dude, I got nothing to say. I got nothing. It's like hey, we're chilling, we're cool. We're cool. Like,
You win. You got it.
it's like, what is he gonna do? What is he gonna say? He's gonna like sometimes it'd be like that.
Honestly, I'd be happy just to provoke them that much to go that hard.
Exactly. It's like, oh, okay, awesome, great.
Right. But yeah, so if anyone wants us to do more biopic reviews and torture us, put them in the comments. Say which ones you want us to review. There's gonna be 20 more coming up soon, so
If you guys
we have a
like
lot of ammo.
us talking about movies, we can do some other
Maybe.
ones. We'll
If you guys
see.
want to hear us talk about Bowie, because we want to do a Bowie-a-thon at some point.
You can feel
That's
it.
up in the air too. That's up in the air.
Yeah.
But any more closing thoughts about biopics, Lewis? Before we this is our longest one yet, so
I have only feelings and very strong ones at best. So we'll stop here.
yeah, ones that you can't put in the Bohemian Rhapsody movie.
Once I
'cause
gotta
it's
get the guitar out
PG-13.
for you, you know.
Dude, just singing the blues. This is Lewis's tragic backstory.
There's a one time I saw a Jimi Hendrix biopic that ruined his legacy, and I've been playing guitar since.
Yeah. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you for viewing the Broward Exchange. Happy holidays. Please leave comments. We do love feedback. And I am an artist.
I'm an icon.
I love opera.
Do it. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.